that opening for 2018. What is going on, everybody? Welcome. I am muted. Yes, you've heard nothing of what I've just said. Outstanding. That is the way I like to go. I like to roll this way, actually, is by starting out by not being able to be heard. Let's start that again. As I was saying, hi, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Oh, God. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, everybody, to the episode day 13, I believe it is. Episode 3, Kinstrife and Dark Tidings within Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures. It's a pleasure to have everybody here, and I hope everyone is looking forward to some awesomeness with the stream and with this role-playing that we're about to do. Before we get there, a couple of reminders, now for the second time, of ways that you can support the stream if you haven't done so already. Please tweet out the stream, !CTT. Please let everybody that you know about the stream, because we definitely like to bring more people in here as 2018 hopefully gets started with a bang. Please make sure to check out the YouTube channel with !ArvTube, Steam group with !Steam group. Of course, please make sure to check out the Discord with !Discord. Get hype for Middle-earth. Thank you for the resub. I appreciate it, Brahms. Thank you so much. Can we get some Arvany hypes? It's CTT, Dayroyan. CTT. Not CCT, but CTT. CCT is closed circuit television, and that only worked in 1978 when I was a kid. But yes, so thank you so much, Brahms. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the resub. I really appreciate it. Thank you also. I saw Chloe Rose resub today. So thank you. I'll talk about the subs in just a minute. Thank you guys so much for that. So !Steam group for that, !ArvTube to get over to my YouTube channel. Thank you, Chaotix and Stump. !Discord to check out my Discord. Of course, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to check out and follow the channel. And please, if you can support the channel in one of the financial ways, that's always a big help. !ArvShop will get you over to my merchandise channel, where you can check out the various merchandise we have for my Infinity and Beyond campaign. I hope to be able to get some more merchandise up, hopefully reflecting this and other campaigns as well, so you can show your love for all things D&D. So hopefully that'll be happening soon. !Arvtreon will get you over to the Patreon. I do want to remind everybody that we do have inspirations. I don't believe that I've actually updated the Patreon inspiration list yet, though. So if you have not, we haven't had a D&D session so far this month. So if you see that you should be on there and are not, go ahead and inspire during the course of the game if you wish, and I will just make sure to make a note of that. And I'll try to get that adjusted either tonight or tomorrow, so we don't have that issue going forward. And then there's a lot of other things you can get within the Patreon as well, sitting at 400. And last, but certainly not least, of course, is the sub button, which some people have mentioned. We are almost up to 40 subs now, folks. And with 32 patron supporters and 40 subs, that's pretty awesome. There is some overlap. Some people support both. Some people support one or the other. But if you're able to do either one, that's a big help to the channel. So hitting that sub button above the window is another way to help things as well. I can repay you by getting you into a Strahd adventure. Yeah, man, listen, the Curse of Strahd, that's going to be interesting to see when we actually get there. So, we are continuing with our Adventures in Middle-earth Wilderland Adventures campaign today as we move forward with Kinstrife and Dark Tidings. I do want to quickly mention, though, again, as a reminder, Cubicle 7, of course, is kind enough to officially sponsor this campaign, but we have a new group that we're also going to be working with starting next month. This is my Esper Genesis campaign, which is a 5th edition D&D-based science fiction adventure, which I'm really excited about, and we're going to be the official Twitch stream for them. We're going to be doing an official Twitch campaign of a couple of sessions a month. I have my player list now pretty much assembled. I have my player list together. There's one person I'm waiting for confirmation on, but otherwise I'm pretty much assembled with the group, and so we'll be talking more about that to you in the next couple of weeks as we begin to kind of ramp ourselves up and get people pumped up and excited for that campaign, but that'll be happening in February. So I did want to make a note about that since I had talked about that previously in an official announcement. I did want to mention keep your eyes open for more information about Esper Genesis. Okay, with that said, I'm now going to unmute myself so that the wonderful people can hear that we're ready to go. I'm going to unmute Zoom, and then I'm going to head over. There we are. There are the wonderful peoples, which you can see for yourself. And let me make sure I have not muted anybody this time. Nope, not even myself. Everyone is not muted, so that's awesome. I've learned how to do this streaming thing 5.5 years into it. Welcome to my wonderful players on the Adventures in Middle-earth campaign. Happy New Year to all of those folks down below. And I will begin, as I usually do, with the gentleman directly below me, who fortunately is not below the surface of the earth into the great pit that was dug in the center of his house recently. And that, of course, is our friend Trendane. Hi, Trend. So you did survive so far the great unearthing of 2018 thus far?
So far, we've still got, we've got some work to do in the aftermath. The problem with the drainage pipe from your kitchen that goes out to the sewer main that goes out to the sewer having a gigantic crack in it, like 6 feet long, is that anything you've been washing down the sink for the last couple of years has been fermenting down there for a bit. So when they jackhammer the floor open and start digging up all the dirt, if you've ever dug up a grave, I know it's a common thing.
All the time.
One that the earth is somewhat, shall we say, fragrant, kind of like that. And then of course the guys who were doing all the work were tromping, because it was raining yesterday as well. So when they would go out to get a length of pipe or something and bring it back in, the mud that they had piled up in the kitchen on either side of this thing is now tracked throughout the garage. And there is a scent in the garage that is a little different than I'm accustomed to. And anyway, on to somewhat less grotesque topics. No, I got nothing. Okay.
Can you tell people, however, who you are playing in this?
Oh,
this
God, I should do that. And I'm also going to tickle Arv. I'm playing, yes, Tawny Bear, the Hearthminder. That will come into play shortly. You'll see. It'll all come back around.
He's going to say something dramatic like "Mind your hearth, lad."
No, I won't be saying it.
Okay.
Tawny Bear the Hearthminder, who is a Bjorning pacifist, much to some people's discontent. And so with that, I will allow gravity to do its thing and drop it like it's hot, which will also come back around. So with that, the Hearthminder thing. But I'm going to drop it to Will.
Woo!
There's our guy who you can see who is well rested and prepared for an extraordinarily busy 2018, because that's what Will is. Will be rested when he's my age, basically. Until then, we'll see. How are you, Will? How's life in the universe?
It's good. I slept a solid 3 hours on the sofa this morning after a busy night of work. But no, I'm glad to be here. I got coffee and I'm ready to play the passive aggressive and just outright aggressive.
I was gonna say not so passive after last one. We actually got a comment on the thing that was like, "Wow, your campaign went full murder hobo on that one," and I'm like, "Well, listen, I mean, Robar had enough, so."
My bad. So Robar is the Dunedain Ranger, who is out for blood from these dudes last week, and pretty riled up, I think, and ready to go. So let's rock and roll.
I dig it. Moving right on down the line, we have someone who I really sometimes wish that we could reveal some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes before we go live, because some of the discussions that people get into are really interesting, relating to different things that are in people's apartments and certain smells and scents that happen. We can't talk about that in detail, and I won't embarrass any of my players. I'll just leave you with that mental image as we move on to Terry Tunes and say hi to her. Hi, Terry. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. And I can absolutely reveal what my apartment smells right now because it's tea.
And
tea is a good smell.
No.
Well, right now it's not bacon, but when I made bacon, it also smells
it's
like
just tea and she said that's her apartment just smells like tea and bacon. We're like, all right, well, I think that we're done here. I think that's all we really need.
How do you say tea in German?
Tea.
Damn it.
Why?
Because having watched Captain America Civil War several times,
okay,
the guy always orders, Speck, and I'm like, okay, that's bacon.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just Speck and tea. All right, fine.
Well, I mean, bacon and tea go great together. You wouldn't think it would, but it does.
I don't know.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tari Toons. I'm gonna be playing Inge, daughter of Ida, a dwarf, a stonemason, when she's not carrying her axe around, and she also has a cool sidekick, a pony named Lilleman, and she's a wanderer, and wanders around a lot. That's her thing.
Does a lot of wandering.
Yeah.
Yes, I am looking forward to. Yeah, it should be a new flavor at Starbucks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of the development of Inga's character, which we started to see some more of. In fact, relating to her and Tiny Bears, that was fun. We will see how that continues. And moving right on down the line, always a pleasure. And also, of course, you should know Terry as a wonderful artist and cartoonist who soon, hopefully, will be able to return to the drawing fold for us as we move back into some Lone Wolf stuff down the line. But moving right on, we move down
I want a drawing for my character.
Well, you will get it as soon as my doctor gives me the okay that I'm allowed to draw again.
Oh, yeah, no. Please.
This is up to
But you will get your character portrait.
I'm sure your doctor is watching right now. So, doctor, please do what must be done and get this happen. Make this happen.
Come on,
Let's see that fabled German efficiency on getting Terry back to being able to draw.
German
Let's see
doctors
it.
are terrible.
Moving right along, we have, of course, Amal Elmatar, who's with us. Hello, Amal. And
Hello.
I'm really tempted to ask you to relate the story that you told us, just because I think it's really funny. But I don't know about New Year's. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. Just because I want to see if chat also thinks it's completely unbelievable. So.
No, that's absolutely fine. What happened to me at New Year's? So you know how you bear in mind that there's this common saying about New Year's that you begin as you mean to go on, right? So my New Year's Eve was spent mostly at home, chill and quiet. I was intending to go to a couple of friends' parties and just make an appearance and then come back home. And I got it into my head that I was going to season a cast iron pan, which I'd just been given by my parents. Now, to season a cast iron pan, what you do is you set your oven to 450 degrees, you coat it in oil, and you put it in the oven for about half an hour and pull it out, and then put more oil, and so that the oil is polymerizing and seasoning your pan. So that was fine. I put it in once, I took it out, I oiled it, I put it in again, I took it out, oiled it, put it in again. The third time, literally the third time, not just for storytelling's sake, like it was the third time. I pulled out the pan and I put it on the oven. And I just, as I poured the oil on, I absently reached for something else, and with my bare left hand grabbed the 450 degree handle of my cast iron pan, horribly burning myself, and screamed and realized that there was no ointment in the flat. And my husband basically rushed me to a pharmacy that was still open at 8 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And he dropped me off at the pharmacy so that I could just go in while my hand was just wreathed in pain. It was in my head, it was it had transformed into a torch, to the point where when I stepped outside into the minus 30 degrees Celsius weather, it suddenly felt super great, because it was oh, it's not burning anymore. It's amazing for a minute before the frostbite started setting in. So anyway, I went into the pharmacy and found some ointment, and then my husband came in shortly after, and I looked at him, and his face was just covered in blood. And I was like, what? And like my husband has a beard as well, and his beard was just matted in blood. It looked like he'd been in a fight, but what had actually happened is that in his frustration at like, you know, parking and coming to join me, he didn't notice that he'd just started a massive nosebleed, and it had just kind of coated the front of him. And so he was like walking into the pharmacy and people were like backing away from this ginger Scottish hardman covered in like blood. And we ended that New Year's Eve, not even staying up till midnight, but just him going to bed with a hot water bottle and me going to bed with an ice pack. And I've just chosen to interpret this as, you know, beginning as I mean to go on, and that this will be a year of healing from self-inflicted wounds. And maybe I'll finish my PhD. So.
I just think it's going to be a year that, in terms of your career, is going to be real hot. I think that's what we we take from that. Hey,
drop it like it's hot. That's right.
Yeah,
Mal,
exactly.
at the pharmacy,
Wrap it like
did your husband go, don't worry, it's not my blood, when the people looked at him?
I
Aww.
really missed that opportunity because it was entirely his own blood. But yeah.
Oh God.
I don't know how thick his accent is, but I immediately imagined him saying something about, I was mauling a deer for me mate. You know, I'm a good provider. You know, and I was just like, no.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Oh God.
Yeah.
I just as I was listening to that story, I was just kind of like, can you imagine trying to convince someone that like, no, the reason my hand on New Year's Eve was terribly burned and, you know, my husband's face is covered in blood is because, you know, we had a nosebleed and I grabbed a cast iron pan. Like, really? So
That's definitely the most reasonable and simple explanation for
Yeah.
sure.
But the simple ones are the boring ones. You
Yeah.
come up with like a really ridiculous explanation
That's-
of what actually happened.
That's it. Well, I'm glad that you survived it and you're still with us.
you.
And I was about to say and still cooking, but I thought maybe that's a bad
And your hand is
comparison.
No, I mean, so this is the thing. I've literally, the pan is beautifully seasoned now, partly with my flesh, but
Right.
that's fine, you know. Like literally the first thing I cooked on the pan was me. And it's delicious. No, we've cooked many things. I mean, I only seasoned the handle really, so it's not really cannibalism. It doesn't count if I'm not cooking.
The handle.
I see what you did there.
See, this is why when I was doing my intro, I said that the other hearth minder would be, and it was her.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, I just, it'll
Mind this hearth. Yeah.
yes.
The thing is that like when you guys are talking about like the way my screen is actually organized, Trendane is beneath me, and is that how it looks like? So it's
No, I'm
Tara
looking
is
at
to my left.
I'm looking at the stream.
The on-screen thing
Oh,
has it Tren, Will, Terry, and you. I mean, for no particular
gotcha.
reason. It's just how it always has been.
That's all right.
For
then.
you,
Okay.
for me, it's Terry, me, Amal, and Will,
Yeah.
and then
I see.
this blank space at the bottom where Arv should be.
Yeah.
But
That's right.
Well,
exactly.
in Australia, Amal is actually in the next session already, so none of it really makes any sense. No, but it is a pleasure to have you guys all there. Oh God, Rob, Hannibal Lecter proof pan, nice, charming. That's charming, Rob. But it's good stuff. I'm glad that you're here. Okay, and you are playing today, Amal.
I am playing the River, who is a warden of the Woodmen of Rosgobel, and she is so kind of a fighty bard.
Yes, a fighty bard. I like that. And has also been recently gotten some connections that she had not expected. In that
Yes.
she has met a group of people, one of whom looked like and was taught by this guy Lanner, who was a splinter group leader of woodmen that actually left, basically abandoned their posts, if you want to put it in a military sense, and left. And so this group, our group of adventurers, basically took care of them. So it's going to be interesting to see how River handles this, being returned sort of forcibly to a more uncomfortable time in Woodman lore. But we will talk about that. So
I should also say the
yes.
River is accompanied by her faithful hound
yes.
named Stone,
yes,
who is awesome.
and who has gained some power, by the way. Stone, who can now
Has,
fight, of his own accord.
Exactly.
And also is a very good dog. I just want to make sure
Such
that
a
we're
good
clear
dog.
about that. Yes.
The wood popper.
So it is a pleasure to have everybody back. Seriously, I'm really excited to start out 2018, and you guys are the opening of what will be a busy 2018 role-playing group of sessions on this channel. So great to have you folks with us. So let us get back into it. This is episode 3 of the Wilderland Adventures, Kinstrife and Dark Tidings. This basically began after Robar and Inga had gone off to pursue information about Robar's ancestral home to find that the home is actually being, for some reason, worked on, or it seemed like it was being worked on. There was a workman's shed and basically a whole group of supplies and things like that they had. While they were there, Tawny Bear and River were basically trying to rest from exertions. River took the time to actually train Stone. Tawny Bear was actually trying to get more within himself, having been forced to move against his stated goal of pacifism, which is something he's not particularly comfortable with. But there's nothing that makes him feel better than some twice-baked honey cakes and the process of doing that at the hearth. While they were doing that, though, they discovered this dead body in a boat. And it wasn't just the dead body of anybody. It was actually the dead body of Bjorn's, essentially, the chief law enforcement official, if you will, whose job it was to bring back prisoners and people who had committed wrongs to Bjorn for judgment. The
Merovingian.
Yes, that's exactly, no. No, and actually, I'm just
Maravich.
lost his name. It was Maravich, right? Yes, there we go.
Maravich.
So Maravich, I was like, you threw me off. I'm like, what now? Yeah,
You're
so
welcome.
Maravich. Maravich was killed, and so the party, Robar and Inga, ended up coming back and meeting up with Tawny Bear in the river, and they went to tell this basically to Bjorn. Bjorn was impressed with them. They actually were asked to speak at the funeral. River spoke at the funeral and talked to them. Tawny Bear was, of course, as a Bjorning himself, very invested in all of what was happening here. The thing that was sort of disquieting was that in addition to the people who had been killed, apparently by orcs, one of them, the prisoner, apparently had escaped. And so now the party has been sent to find, track down, and bring the prisoner basically back to justice. In the process of doing this, the party went south, moving along the river, as you can see there on your map. They ended up finding, as they began to do this search, a group of bandits that they ended up essentially utterly slaughtering. I don't think there's any other way to put it. There were a couple of people who were left over, but they killed a few. Robar in particular demonstrated great anger in the midst of this fight, which is something will be interesting to explore over time.
They hurt my dog.
And they
Right.
The anger which the river felt was fully expressed by Robar, because you do not hurt. The hurting the dog is out. Canis was a jerk anyway, let's be clear, but the dog thing will not stand. But in any case, the one bit of information they gathered, which was very valuable, is once they had defeated this group, one of them, whose name was Fennis, who was slightly younger than the river, although not very much, but slightly younger, basically broke ranks with his compatriots and basically said that he didn't want to be involved in this kind of life anymore. He was getting out of the gang, more or less, and brought the party to the bottom of this stony gully where there was actually the dead body of an orc. The monster's body was there, and then the head was right nearby. And this orc's thing had been chopped off. The head had been chopped off by a sword. I should also mention that Meravich's sword was missing from the boat, so we don't actually know what happened, but the assumption is that the prisoner took it and has it with him. Whether that's true or not, we'll actually see. And so as we begin again, moving now into day 13, as we move on to the next day of episode 3, the party has to continue to try to track down information and basically trace down this prisoner and find out who the heck he is. And so with that, I will now bring it up to the party. You guys are standing on top of the edge of this gully where the orc's body was found, and you can now decide where it is you want to go. The tracks, such as they are, lead south, although they disappear pretty quickly. But there are tracks from the sort of muddy, wet bottom of the gully kind of leading up. And then on the top, it has been a little bit dry over the last few days. So the tracks die out essentially very quickly, but they are leading to the south, such as they are.
Did we search the body yet?
I don't remember if you did, but you can
We
certainly
didn't go down yet.
You can certainly check it if you wish. You're just standing atop the top of the gully looking around. So.
Okay, so Inga turns to the rest of the party and goes, maybe we should check the immediate area in case there are more about.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you all going down into the gully, or are you going to have someone stay up top? Are you all going in, or what are you doing?
Staying up top with Finnick.
Okay. All right. You do that.
River will stay up top as well and see if she and Stone can track any further than the tracks go.
Okay. Let's see. Make why don't I have you, River, make it make a perception check for me, please. As you're up there, and let's see how far you find things. Meanwhile, Robar and Inga, I assume you're going down into the gully, so I'll talk to you guys in a second.
I'm trying. Sadly, my my character sheet is not coming up for some reason. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. Ah, sorry. It was just taking a second to load. Perception, you say?
Yes. Thanks for the info, by the way, guys. Yeah, roll 20 and is Zoom for the camera share. Yeah, so 12 is what we're looking at.
Oh dear.
It's so the tracks. So basically, the gully is surrounded by there's stones mostly at the bottom of the gully, and then up top you've got this sort of scrub brush, which quickly becomes somewhat higher grass. You might remember I mentioned that this is springtime, early spring, so we're talking like March, something like that. So a lot of the grass has been sort of wet and beaten down in the way that snow that melts on grass tends to have this effect for some time, but there's definitely some tracks in places where the grass is moved out of the way for several hundred feet, all moving in the same direction, kind of slanting southwest towards the river. So basically you're to the east side of the river, and the tracks are more or less going, in fact, let me just draw it quickly, more or less it's going kind of roughly this way, heading down towards the river. But the tracks pretty quickly just, they kind of vanish from what you can tell. There's not, there's a lot of, again, the grass is sort of longer, but then again, it gets smaller, shorter again. There's some spots where it's just stones, and at that point you kind of lose it. Stone himself kind of is sniffing along the scent, but Stone kind of gives you this look like, I don't know, after he gets not very far into it, so.
Does it look like that he may have walked in the river at that point, from that point on?
Well, the river is farther west than you are, so you would need to go a little farther than that to be able to tell if that's what he went. It's definitely not straight west. I mean, if he went from where you guys are standing directly west, he could have gone to the river. It seemed more like he was sort of diagonaling down in that direction gradually. So I should point out one other thing, which is, although you're not able to see too much of the tracks, it looks to you as if the grass is kind of matted in such a way that it looks to you as if he was probably going at a pretty good pace. Like he might have gotten out of the gully and then just booked it, or, you're not clear, but it definitely was not someone who was trying to conceal his path or going slowly and calmly. Definitely not slowly and calmly. Yeah, the river is east of the river. Yes, that is the fact. Yeah, that is true. You speak truth. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the gully. So, Inga and Robar, are you guys? Who is specifically touching or moving the body, or what? Tell me what you're doing around the body.
I wanna just check if he has anything on him that might identify him further, like maybe what group he belongs to or something. Something like that.
Okay.
I'm gonna wipe the blood from my sword on his clothing as I do so.
The worst CSI.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks like there was some blood.
Yeah.
He has DNA on him from this guy. He must be the one who killed him.
Exactly. Right. I found our suspect, and it's
Looks like
actually
someone
Robar.
stabs him.
It's actually Robar who did it. So Robar, why are you holding that broken rope? What? No, nothing. I wasn't. It wasn't me. Okay. So Inga, make an investigation check for me, please.
Ooh, 21.
Okay. So this is what you're able to discover, Inga, as you're looking through the bodies of the orc. There doesn't seem to be any belt pouch or even swords or daggers or anything like that on them. But underneath the body, there is what looks to be a kind of rough wooden spear, which was probably slung onto his back. It looks like, if you had to guess, the ferocity of the assault against this orc was such that the orc didn't even have time to defend itself. Basically just turn around and in fact, you would almost guess that this orc might have been literally hit and thrown back into the gully. Basically just slammed into and then, fell on its back on the gully. The rough wooden spear looks extremely familiar to you, and as you hold it up, you're almost positive, and you can ask Robar if you want to see if he gets the same feeling about this, This is the same kind of spear that was used to slay the other people that you guys saw in the boat. When you came to the boat, you may remember that you guys waded across. I forget who it was. It might have been
Oh,
Rabar.
God. Yes, I do
who
remember.
waded across, and there was that big spear that was thrown into the orcs. Well, they were carrying spears like this that were thrown in the other direction, and they had a quiver of rough arrows on their back. Now, this one doesn't have a bow and an arrow, but he does have this rough spear, and the spear that he has looks like the spear that was thrown in the other direction towards the orcs, almost as if maybe the orcs threw the spears at them, and this guy took the Marovich or somebody took the spear and threw it right back at them and impaled them in the ways that I suggested.
Two of them.
Two of them, yes, at once with the same spear.
Right.
Wow.
It was a hell of a throw.
Some
So
Lego
yes,
shit.
so if you had to put two and two together, this seems like maybe an orc that was in that same original attacking party.
Okay, so I show the spear to Robar and go, recognize this? Looks like the spears we found upriver.
Yeah, it looks like the same person.
Or at least
Incredible
the same
amount of
group.
yeah, at least same group. Yeah, incredible amount of strength, whoever they were.
What? Why are you laughing?
Nothing. This is
Nothing.
nothing.
Oh yeah, upriver. Yeah, I get it.
Why did I choose this?
I know.
know.
You should have just chosen like
Couldn't we
Quetzalcoatl
have
or
this
just like
campaign in a desert? Or
yeah,
something?
exactly. You should
Or
have called yourself
anytime-
the sand dune or something. Like that would have been a lot
Yeah.
easier.
Or anytime anything like that comes up, you just go, well, maybe with a little more permanence than that.
Exactly.
It's like we should throw a stone at them, and then somebody just throws the dog at somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Damn it! Stop naming things after things. Anyway.
Oh, it's like getting stoned, but like it's just like the dog licking.
Yeah, right. Every time Stone attacks, that's the catchphrase. You've been stoned.
Everybody must get stoned.
Oh man. Anyway, that is what you see on the body of the orc.
Okay. Anything else like some items that might look useful to us or something?
No, but the one
salvage.
thing you notice is that I mentioned that the ferocity of the assault, but the orc is still got this very rough leather armor, and the armor has not been stripped. The spear, of course, as I said, is still on its back. This doesn't look like a robbery. Like the bandits that you dealt with were not. They were clearly trying to rob you and get money from you. That doesn't look like what was going on here. Even though there's no money on this creature, there doesn't seem to be anything else that would have been stripped for value. And so it's odd. It's as if this thing was just killed for the sake of being killed.
Isn't it like really unusual to have like one single orc running around somewhere?
It is very unusual.
Okay, so Inga turns to Robar.
Hmm.
Maybe this one was a scout or something, or maybe his friends got away when he was attacked.
Could be the only survivor from the previous encounter. And he ran away, survived. They tracked him down and killed him here, maybe.
Well, I mean, he looks like he was surprised, right?
Right.
And I don't think orcs are the type of creatures who run away from a fight, are they?
Not at all. But if you saw what they did to his friends back there, I think be fair enough to say running would be the better option.
Maybe, but we should be on the lookout. There might be more of these very close by. So let's search for
Or whoever
tracks. I
killed it.
think
Yeah. He might have been running back home
that could be.
to his master.
That could be.
I'll take a look around for the tracks.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So both of you can make again investigation checks for me. Let's see if you can track down tracking.
13.
Okay.
Investigation. 16.
Okay. Inga, you think that you see there's sort of a confusion of tracks, orc and something else that you're not 100% clear of down here. Robar, you think you see it perhaps a little bit more clearly. There is this confusion of tracks, but clearly there are orc tracks and then what look like shoe or boot tracks down below. And they're definitely smaller size than the orc tracks that you see here. So probably this was not another orc that killed this thing. If you had to guess, it looks maybe like a humanoid that was smaller than the orc. And then you're able to sort of trace, there's a big commotion towards the southern end of the gully, basically, the one that's pointing towards the south, where you're able to see as if there was like a lot of scrambling and scrabbling. There's grass that's ripped out and pulled down as if something was trying to scramble out of the gully and then got up. And as you sort of, pull yourself up to sort of look, you can see sort of crouched down looking at the ground, you see the river with Stone sniffing along in the same general line, apparently looking at some of the same things that you're looking at. So whatever this was scrabbled out and then it looks like ran, if you had to guess. This didn't look like someone who was being careful about, again, concealing their tracks. They were just pulling themselves out and booking it, as far as you can tell.
The gully is like a creek, right? But like deeper ground,
yes,
right?
and dry.
Okay.
There
Dry.
it is damp at the moment but not because of there's actual water flowing in it or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll call over the river. Got some more tracks here. Looks like they were on the run.
Oh, that's what it seemed like from my side too. Can Stone get his own perception check?
Yes, Stone can try. You can ask Stone to try to sort of sniff along the line. How well he can communicate what he finds is another issue. But yes, you can do that.
Didn't we have did we have something from was it Maravich before, like something that was we're going to see if it was going to
Yes.
Oh, the rope. We had the rope,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Which you still have with you, I assume. I believe you have the rope.
Yeah, exactly. And just to see if like there's some connection between this and the tracks that maybe Stone can determine.
Okay, so how do you want? You want to have him sniff the rope and then sniff the tracks, or like what do you?
Yeah,
okay.
and I think just to kind of well, we want to see where the tracks are going and see if they are the same, basically, right?
Okay.
So yeah, let's.
Okay, yeah. So go ahead and make a perception check for him. The reason that he's doing perception, not investigation, is to whether you can see some of the matted down areas specifically, as opposed to the very clearly visible tracks that they're investigating. Okay. So the sort of sniffing, it basically, if Stone were a pointer, he would be going down and then pointing with his paw sort of again in the southwesterly direction, gradually moving towards the river and intersecting theoretically with that thing you can see on the map. Now, again, that's zoomed out, so that's not like right nearby you. You'd be probably in a couple hours travel, but getting down to the intersection of the Old Forest Road with the river. So basically the old ford where you folks met, actually before you guys met the river, if I'm not mistaken. This was where you, Tawny Bear, and Robar and Inga first had an encounter with the Bjornings when you were trying to track down our good friend Dindy. So it seems to be heading in that general direction. But that's the best that Stone seems able to be able to do. Past that, it gets a little bit confused. But if you're reading him properly, he certainly seems to think this is similar. That those smells are similar.
I think that heading down in this direction is our best bet. There doesn't seem to be much more to do than to head southwest and see what we can see.
I agree.
But it does seem like I think that we're probably at this point definitely pursuing our escapee.
I think so, but if that's the case, then we know that they're incredibly dangerous.
We should maybe also check at the old fort. Maybe they have seen something since last time we've been there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you guys want to set out to do that, you can definitely do so. Unless there's anything else anybody wants to check around here, you can head off if you like.
Are there any more orc tracks around?
Beyond that area, no. Just sort of right around that area, there doesn't seem to be.
Nope.
Okay. So, all right, you guys set off to the south. I would like all of you to make either investigation or perception checks. You can take whichever one is better as we continue this. We're technically on a journey, capital J, by the way. We'll think about how that works as we go along.
6.
You're like, the air is lovely this time of year. Inga. Tawny Bear's like,
Birds are
I
singing.
would love to be baking right now.
No, Tawny Bear's thinking something else.
Okay. Robar is, although sort of fascinated by the circumstances around him, Robar, you think maybe that you're able to, make sure I get that right. As you guys travel for about an hour or so, you become less and less certain. There are at first a couple of, a broken stick here. There's a branch that seems to have fallen off a tree oddly over there. There is, matted down grass. But as time goes on, there seems to be less and less and less of those, fewer and fewer of those sorts of signs available to you. And as you continue to head southwest, you begin to become doubtful. Maybe, you misread the signs. Maybe you misread the tracks. Maybe you're not actually going in the right direction. And then in about an hour, when you've sort of really started to lose hope and focus, you see to the east of your position, so you're traveling south, so to your left, you see what looks like an isolated farmstead. Roughly, I'll put it on the map here, maybe right about here. You're maybe now only about half an hour from the forest road, if you had to guess. Okay. But there is definitely an isolated farmstead, which seems to be going, it's near the direction where the tracks were originally coming from. But again, that's not, you don't know because you started to lose sight of where the tracks are, actually, so you don't know. But it's the only thing you've got. You could ignore that entirely and just keep going straight down to the road, following the rough direction where the tracks were, but that's up to you.
I'll point it out to our friends. Looks like a likely place to bunker down if you're looking to hide somewhere.
Yeah, I think we need to take a break and regroup and return here with fresh eyes, because I feel like we're missing something.
I agree. Do we also want to talk about what we do when we find this individual?
My thought was to appeal to his better nature.
This
That's lightheartedly.
You saw what he did to those orcs back there. He doesn't look like he has much of a good nature, whoever he is.
I don't know. My sense is that someone who's a fierce enemy to orcs might be potentially a friend to us.
I do that.
Do we know what he was guilty of, why he was a prisoner?
No. You have no idea.
He was being brought back for judgment.
You would have found that out if he had ever been brought to judgment, but
exactly.
Right.
I think that it's entirely possible that whoever we're pursuing, is a person of some form of honor. It troubles me to think of all these spears, the connections to Lanner, just that we've not heard of him in so long, and I don't know if this person is connected to him or not, but if there is some connection to my people, I'd like to think that it's someone who could be reasoned with or spoken to, instead of, with words instead of with swords.
Explain all this business with Lanner. I understand that there was a group of people and he fell out with the people of the woods.
I was really young at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This it wasn't 15 years ago, but it was a good 8 years ago, probably.
Okay. Yeah. So, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. I'm remembering this from last time and stuff, but I was very young at the time. I just knew that he was someone who my parents greatly respected, and they were very disappointed in his decision to leave. They didn't talk about him afterwards. They just said that he was an example of why it was important for us to stick together and to help each other and to use our gifts for each other's gain. But they didn't, he wasn't much spoken of once he left. It really was it was like something left with him besides the people, some sense that just a sadness came on us after that I don't know. It's I wish I could remember more about it, but
it seems as though this Lanner might be connected with our prisoner somehow. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
Most of this is all just speculation, but I agree. If we can try and talk him down, maybe he would be the best person for that.
I certainly don't mind talking, but it really is just a strangeness. All these things coming together. I'd not thought of, this spear wielders in some time, and the fact that to see that was his name Canis the jerk?
Yes, Canis was the jerk.
Yeah.
Oh, and he wielded a spear as well.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember he was fighting in that way. Okay. No, to see that fighting style wielded by someone so unsavory and dishonorable is very, I don't know, it muddles me. I don't like it.
Do you feel like we could be tracking Lanner? I mean, is he a master of that art? Because whoever's been doing this to the orcs, they know what they're doing.
He is. I mean, from the only thing I know about him is that this was his art. He was the best at it, and he taught us so much. So I must think that it has to be either a student of his or Lanner himself, but that could just be a story I'm making for myself from the few facts that we have.
Canis was the guy we killed last time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Canis was the big jerk.
Canis was the big jerk who is trying to be all like, people were keeping us down by making us work our fair share in a community. Instead, we decided to be bandits and be free.
And now you're dead.
He was like a sexist and a dog hater.
These are both things.
Worst combination.
No problem, dude.
Make Wilderland great again. Yeah.
We didn't actually kill
Was he an
Canis
AFD
though.
voter? Yes.
Do we not kill Canis?
We didn't kill
Oh,
him.
you're right. You're
No,
right.
we tied him up and sent him to be judged farther.
Oh, that's right. That's
Okay,
right. I beg your
Didn't
pardon.
I
Yeah, you're right.
No.
attack his
You
feet
did-
or something so that he couldn't walk anymore, or was that a different guy?
No, I think we cut Robar clean sliced off one dude's head.
Yeah.
And there was that connection to the the bandits you guys had encountered before. But Canis himself, he talked his freaking gob off, but then he just we decided to respect the law and stuff.
One thing I want to make a note, just because chat brought this up. The path was leading southwest. I should say that the path, again, the signs that you saw straightened out, but so in other words, from going west sort of to straight south, paralleling the river rather than heading towards it. But that also was when you were beginning to get very uncertain about the tracks and the signs. So, it's kind of guesswork a little bit at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think you missed the joke here, Arf, with the Riverdale. I think people misunderstood that one as Rivendale.
Yeah, right. Rivendell
And that's why
is a
he said
different sort of...
westwards, because Rivendell is westwards from here.
Ah,
That's how I
yes,
got it.
Rivendell. I see what you're saying. My bad.
Not everybody's
yes,
familiar with Riverdale.
Riverdale, yeah, exactly. As long as they're not going to the Riverdale, yeah. I think
see, I called it. There he goes.
Oh man, that's funny.
Got
Can't
enough
read.
drama without high school drama.
Yeah, exactly.
I like
right,
it.
right?
That show
I've
is
never
weird in
watched
all the
it.
great ways.
If I want grimdark Archie comic stuff, I will read the Archie with zombies or the comics. But
Well,
anyway,
the comics
they're
are not
great,
popular
but-
here, so.
It feels like they're really forcing it, like grimdark Archie. Like no, but like no. I read no. It can't be grim. I'm sorry, no, just no. Anyway.
But anyway. So we're heading towards the homestead then? Did you say it looks abandoned?
No, it looks isolated, not
isolated.
abandoned.
Okay.
In fact, if anything, the fields around it look reasonably well tilled, so it's probably occupied. Yeah.
Wait, we are at the old fort right now, right? Or where are we?
No, you were about at 45 minutes north of it, probably, if you had to guess, Inga. You're
But
pretty
there's
close.
an isolated homestead that we can see, and we were saying that we should stop there to regroup or just to see if there's anyone there that. What time of day is it at this point? Is it getting on to be evening?
This would probably be mid-afternoon, if you had to guess. So we're probably around like maybe 3-4 o'clock-ish. So the sun is definitely starting to head down in that direction, but it's not as it is in real life right now. 2 hours of daylight. I'm joking, but no, you have a little more time than that. Also,
So,
I mean, if we are just 45 minutes north of the old fort, we might as well keep walking.
That's true, but if there's someone at this homestead that we can always see if they have seen someone go by, we can ask for information.
Well, good point.
I'd like to stop here and see if anyone's seen anyone, or if it's empty, we can take a rest here. We're not gonna conquer Middle Earth in a day, so let's take some rest.
Or if our quarry is there.
Right.
That's always a possibility.
Could be hiding in there.
so how are you guys approaching the farmstead then?
I want to check around the house first to see if I find anything or anybody suspicious lurking about.
Okay. How far of a radius? How large of a radius are you doing, Inga? Are you like right around the walls, or are you trying to like a good distance? Like what distance are you going to? Because you'll probably be, as you do that, unless you take serious steps, visible to whatever or whoever might be inside the house.
Well, are there trees around or something?
No.
Or is this like
No,
just,
it's pretty much I mean, there's a couple of small trees, but no, it's like possibly fruit trees, maybe.
She is a dwarf.
But the trees are beyond
I'm
it
not
farther.
that small.
Yeah. No, the trees beyond it are in the east are sort of the western edge of Mirkwood, which down this area. But that's again, you can sort of see that looming in the distance. It's not right on top of it. So no, it's pretty much like by itself. That's why I mentioned the thing about it being isolated. And these lands are reasonably safe, especially because of the proximity to the ford where Bjorn keeps guards. But still, the wild is the wild, and there's no one else around. If there was something that crawled out of Western Mirkwood and decided to venture out a little ways.
Okay, then never mind. I would
I
suggest
think
we just go to the house and knock at the door and see
yes.
if anybody's home.
I think we should just approach clearly and honestly.
Yeah, when we sneak up on people, we end up getting in fights.
Exactly.
Getting in fights.
Who does
Also,
that?
even if it is our quarry, we look a fairly motley crew, I think. I don't think that we look like a group of Bjornings come to, take him into custody or anything.
Inge stares at Tony Bear as she said, "We don't look like Bjornings."
No, we don't.
Any Bjorning probably
don't
looks like a Bjorning coming to take him to justice at this point.
Well, that's fair, but I mean, I don't know. I think that
We could just pass off as random wanderers. So,
would you like to stay
let's
back?
just go to the
Tony
house.
Bear? And
Possibly.
would you like to stay back?
Possibly.
Maybe that it would be. I mean, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to stay back.
He's not right in front of the door.
Right. Fair. You can
We
stay
are but poor lost circus.
Come and know me better, man. Like
Exactly.
Well, if you want to stay with the animals, then we could just approach the three of us, Inga and Rabar and me.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also glance at Inge glances at Tony Bear, like with a way that kind of says, "Oh, so you're staying back behind again, right?"
Yeah.
She doesn't say anything. But it's like written all
definitely.
over her face.
Definitely, Robar is a bit short of that as well. Yep.
Okay. Are you staying in? Are you trying to move out of the way of like the door, the line of vision from the door, Tony Bear? Okay. So, okay. So you're gonna
Standing right in front of a window.
Okay. Right. Hi.
Oh, I do take the pony with me though.
You do take Liliman. Okay. So, all right. So you head over there. By the way, thank you, Punkstead. I'm glad that you're finding it enjoyable. So you folks head up to the door. As you get close, you can see that there does seem to be You don't. There are some sheds, possibly for chickens. There might be what looks like a stable, although it's behind the house, so you'd have to go around the outside to see for sure. But it definitely seems like a place that's lived in. The grass around it is neatly trimmed, and there's definitely some fields. Although right now the fields are, it's early March, so there's nothing, growing in them at the moment, but that's visible. And as you come up to the door, you can see that it's a sturdily built, albeit not like it's not a mansion, but it seems to be a sturdily built place. And you can knock on the door if you wish. Hello, Nergabrit.
River will blithely knock on the door in a kind of cheerful way.
Okay. You hear this shuffling, this coming on the other side of the door. And then a door opens, and you see there is this bent-over man who is wearing kind of a simple leather tunic and leather pants, and has this white wispy beard, white wispy hair sort of trailing in different sections. He's not bent over double, but he's definitely sort of leaning, and he has a broom in his hand, and which is the sort of bottom of it, and he sees you and says, "Yes?" And I should say, by the way, that this is, he's a large bent-over man. In fact, if you had to guess, you'd say that he probably is a Bjorning, but he looks quite old.
River will say, "Hail and well met, Uncle. My name is the River. This is Inga of the... River will not actually forget this, but
Of the Erebor.
To eloquently introduce both Inga and Robar by their respective titles.
At your service.
And he kind of looks at you and says, "All right, and what do you want?"
River looks at the others briefly to just be like, "All right, shall we just keep going?" We were wondering if you'd had any trouble recently with bandits or with, strangers, ourselves accepted, of course, causing trouble in these parts.
And he sort of looks at you and says, "We don't get cause for much trouble around here, but part of that is because we keep the land safe by the power of our own two hands. We had trouble back in the day, but haven't had much need for it as of late." And he sort of almost, it looks over his shoulder as if sort of being like, back there sometime. You're not sure if he's referring to metaphorically, like back in time he had problems, or I used to have problems, but now they're behind me, and you have no idea what that means, like stacked in a woodshed, like you don't know what that means, but he just sort of, but he says, "But no, I don't have any problems now. They get the occasional visitor here and there, like yourselves."
I'm very glad to hear that, sir. We are just travelers and trying to make things better wherever we pass by as well. So very glad to hear that. I'm glad you've not had any trouble. We're on our way to a little farther south. Is there, I'm trying to think as I'm talking, it's very difficult.
Behind him, the producer's like, stretch.
We're on our way down south. Are there any messages you need carried or anything of that nature? Can we be of any kind of assistance to you while we're here?
He says, "Well, you could probably help cut some more of the wood, or maybe sweep up the floor of my house." And he kind of looks at you for a minute and then goes, "Ha! Ha 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 ha!" And it's pretty clear he's sort of laughing. I guess it's sort of like that's a joke. And he says, "Nah, I've been living on my own for a long time. Normally I'd say it's good to see a few new people. I don't get too many visitors around here, but it's odd, you see. There's been more than one of you recently. I don't know if they're sending everyone down south or why, but there's been more than a few visitors of late, it seems."
Oh, what type of visitors?
"Oh, we've gotten several of them. Some Bjornings, of course. A few of them dwarf types, like yourself." And he sort of points to you, Inga. Really jolly dwarves, actually, that we've had. And, of course, there was the young man a couple days ago, too. Strange he was, that fella. but, well, nice enough.
Really?
Did he carry a spear with him?
A spear? Well, I don't know that it's that wise to be talking about people who stay with me now. He kind of didn't want me talking about himself too much, I thought. It's sort of my way to keep people's privacy when I can, you understand?
And Tawny will kind of stroll up as though he had just been lagging behind.
Okay. Hello.
Well met. You, Tawny Bear.
And he nods at you. Geralt.
I presume that my compatriots here have told you of the man we seek.
He says, man? No, they were just talking to me about if I could do any errands for me, really.
Okay.
Yes, Tawny Bear, because that's polite.
You've not been doing this for a long time, River, have you?
River just shakes her head.
You say, well, you didn't say whether or not he had a spear. But I should tell you that the individual we are charged with finding would likely have been carrying Maravich's sword taken from his corpse.
Now, his eyes widen a little bit without even having to make an insight check. You can see that his eyes widen a little bit when you say Maravich. He says, his corpse? Oh, that's grim news. That's grim news indeed. Maravich I had a dispute with someone over land that had been taken from me some years ago. Maravich was a man who set it to rights. You mean this man might have killed him?
At the very least, the individual we track most likely has his sword. He was Maravich's detainee being taken back to Beorn for judgment. The appearance of events may be that they were set upon by orcs, and as the lone survivor, he escaped, took Maravich's sword in the process.
And he nods and sort of lowers his head. That's ill news indeed. Make a persuasion check for me, please, Tawny Bear.
Okay.
You can actually add +2 to it.
Okay.
I'd like to think that actually Tawny Bear does the squeaky voice too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Like it's this massive bear of a man, and they're just okay.
Right. So is that looking at a 7? Is that what I got?
I think so, yeah. Unless
Okay.
you gave me.
I didn't give you advantage. I gave you
Right.
+2. So he says, he kind of looks to the ground. He shakes his head. He says, but I don't know, though. It just seems wrong somehow to be giving up the names of people. I mean, we may have nothing to do with it. It's just a visitor. I mean, let's say someone came after you, asking about you. Should I be telling them about your wheres and wherefores and your means and methods? I don't
Listen
know.
here, Garrel was your name, right?
Yeah.
We
Geralt,
are
that's
talking
right.
about a potential murderer here that we are trying to track down. It
Oh.
would be really, really good of you to tell us, because he might be ending up killing more people.
No, River puts her hand on Inga's shoulder briefly and looks troubled because she says just that I understand.
Robo's getting more and more stressed out by this.
No, I understand and I am it does you honor, sir, to respect the sacred rights of a host to a guest. We won't ask you for his name. We don't need his name. All we need to know is where he went. And I promise you that all we want is to render him for justice and not to do him any ill. But just if he is innocent, then he'll be able to prove so. And if he isn't, then he will face Bjorn's justice for a murder. But it doesn't do him any credit to be skulking and running and not facing up to whatever he was arrested for in the first place. And so if you can just tell us in which direction he went or any information like that you have, it would be of a great help to us.
Go ahead and make a persuasion check. You can do this one at advantage.
Robar's like clenching and unclenching his fist.
I thought you were actually with a stress ball. I was gonna be very excited. Which of course the stress ball has like a face of an orc on it. It's like
Yeah.
It used to be a pumpkin, and now it's
Yeah.
Oh Christ. Sorry.
Okay. Right, so you're taking the 5. No, I'm just joking. Okay. So he says, well, I suppose it wouldn't do you any harm to tell you where's his whereabouts anyway, at least as far as I know. There's a young adventurer came a few days back. He stayed with me and asked for help. He seemed, well, courteous and calm, but there was something odd about him somehow, like not everything fit together. We'd be talking about something, and then he'd look at me and he'd say something that didn't seem to fit what he'd been talking about before. But he was a friendly enough sort, and he left me a silver coin as payment. He was respectful, I can say that for him. And he looks up at Tawny Bear, sort of blinking, and then looks down at Inga, and he says, well, I suppose if all of you, and then he looks at Robar, and then finally looks at you, River, if all of you think that he's it'd be worth information and worth value to perhaps finding him, I don't know. I just would be cautious with him. But he told me his name was Oderic. Oderic, which is O-D-E-R-I-C, in case you're curious. Not O''Derek as if you were Irish, but Oderic.
Oh, Derek.
Oh, Derek.
Oderic?
Yes. An odd one he was, though. But he certainly didn't lift a hand to me or do anything other than just leave money in payment. Didn't talk much about himself, though, other than just sort of general things about the land and the weather.
And a spear. Did he carry one?
I believe he did, yes. Lashed to his back. He only laid it down when he went down to sleep. In fact, it was right over there, and he holds like a trembling finger out. There's a few beds that are, there's obviously what presumably is the old man's bed in one side of the room, and then there's a little sort of sub-room where there's another, what looks like on the ground, like, pile of maybe straw, maybe there's a few pillows, it's not really clear back there. And he's like, that's where I put him. I'm not used to keeping guests, but his money was good, and so were his manners.
Thank you so much for this. This is a great help. And sorry, did he say, I've forgotten already, did he point out a direction where he left, or?
Yeah, and so he looks out the door, and then he points, he says, he was heading mostly there. He asked me which way the ford was. I showed it to him, and he seemed, for some reason, he wanted to know. When he left, I pointed him that way, and he sort of points towards the not you, the river, but the actual river. And then he said, but he went off that way instead, and he shifts as if, again, he was keeping this parallel track, as if he did not go towards where the ford was, but went straight / a little bit away from it as he continued down to the south. So again, not heading towards the river itself.
When did he leave?
Oh, let me think. A few days ago, probably. He must have been here, well, this would have been Wednesday last, and he does a couple of calculations. Probably 3 days, I'd say.
All right. I don't have any more questions, and I look at the other guys in the group.
No, that's all for me.
And there were other buildings around, like a chicken coop?
There is, yeah, there's a little like chicken shed, and then behind is this what presumably is the stable, although again, you haven't been looking out windows or anything, but you need to like go back and see it. Those are the other two things that seemed obvious to you from here.
All
Did
right.
the stuff he say, did this seem genuine to us, that he wasn't lying?
Make an
Or
insight
anything?
check for me. Let's see if you think it is.
I was looking around because apparently the sense motive skill is not around anymore for 5th edition.
No,
so,
this is about that insight now. All about that
okay.
insight.
Oh god.
Ooh.
Seems perfectly trustworthy. You're like, everything he said. No, I mean, he seems like, I mean, you don't know for sure, but it seems reasonable that he's, the way that he described himself before, not being wanting to necessarily tell you about it. He seemed to be more or less the same way. You don't know how deceptive this guy is. And River, you get sort of the same feeling. Nothing stands out to you as being really bizarre about his story.
Can I can I justify a reason for Tani to make such a similar check?
I don't know. Can you? What would be your justification?
Since Tani also, maintains home and hearth and field and all that other stuff as well, does this guy seem too old to handle this place by himself?
Good. Make an insight check. I'll buy that. And in answer to your overall question, no, not for a Bjorning, and not as a farm. It's, because the guy, as I said, I tried not to overdo it. I didn't want to make him into Quasimodo. Like, he's not, but like, sanctuary, Lord. Like, I didn't want to make him like that. In fact, you can tell, and this is what he seems reasonable to you. One thing that you do notice, Tawny Bear, is he's got this leather tunic, as I said, and he's got this kind of a cloth shirt underneath the tunic, and the arms are somewhat loose. And so as he's got the broom held in the one hand, sort of like what you're doing right now in the window, you've got the thing held up, his sleeve is down a little bit, and you can see what looks like possibly what might have been at one point very wiry muscles. Like you would bet that this guy back in the day was not just using a broomstick. Like back in the day, this is a person who must have done other things. And indeed, you yourself know the experience of having a different past than your present. So it would not surprise you if this guy had been, more involved in that. That was the case with most of the Bjornings, actually. Very difficult to just be a simple farmer without being someone who fights people off so you can be a farmer in these lands, back in the day anyway.
Then I suppose our next question comes to, do we ask to stay or do we move along?
I'd prefer to move along.
I think that if he's already 3 days ahead of us, then I think we should probably go on. Although it seems, are we talking amongst ourselves now?
I assume so. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be kind of funny though. Now the question is like pushing the man away.
Yeah.
Do we ask him to stay? No, I assume you're talking amongst yourselves.
Yeah. So he asked about the ford, but then went off in a direction away from the ford.
Which direction was it again?
So the ford was southwest, and that's where the old man pointed that he had told this guy to go, but then his hand shifted to where he actually went, which was pretty much straight south, more or less the line that you've been kind of choosing. You started southwest, but then, as I said, the path straightened out, and the way that he's pointing is more or less that same thing, going south again.
So my question then would be, do we think that he asked about the ford in order to throw off, throw people who were potentially going to follow him off the scent and to go to the ford while he went elsewhere? Or did he appear to be going in a different direction in order to be then circling back to go to the ford?
I think he was trying to avoid the ford. Like maybe he just knew vaguely in what direction it was, so he asked.
I think he knows he's being tracked. I think he knows people are following him, and I think he's trying to throw us off. He knew we would come here and talk to this old guy, and that the old guy would spill the story. So I think he's headed straight south. I don't know where he's headed to, but he knows the lands, it seems like, and moves quickly. He moves quicker than us.
Indeed. Does the name Oderic ring any bells for River?
Or for me, actually, since I have been around quite a bit.
Both of you could make history checks for me. Let's see if it does.
It's like, I was wondering if it's like the Joe Smith of Middle Earth, like, oh, Oderic, that's my name.
I have 5 cousins named Oderic, yeah.
Natural one.
Inga, you're like, what is history? You're like, who am I? Who is my family?
No, it's worse. Yeah, like 15 Oderics.
Exactly. Like, it's the Gregory Wilson of, I know. Everyone knows them. Okay. So, no, not really. It doesn't sound particularly familiar to you. You know of no famous Oderics. So, not really.
I mean, yeah.
I think both ideas probably carry some merit. He knows he's being tracked, so asking about the ford would potentially, he hopes, throw off any pursuers, but also they were going up to see Beorn by a boat. If they went past the old ford, I promise you the Beornings there will remember him. And if he is, even if they don't, if he passes the old ford carrying Marovich's sword, they will recognize that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, right.
Also,
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
no, I was just, I mean, it might be a thought to wonder, you know, this is clearly someone who is, you know, walking with great purpose, and it makes me wonder if he's not just running away from pursuit, but running towards something in particular.
That's what worries me as well. If he knows these lands and he's making a purposeful choice in which direction he's going. If he knew where the old ford was, then knew to go around from it, then there might be more of a plan to this than we at first realized.
I mean, if I were, I admit it's a bit of a stretch to imagine, but if I were a criminal on the run, I'd imagine I'd try to lose people in the forest.
It would be easy to get lost if you would have head that way for sure. I mean, most pursuers wouldn't follow you into Mirkwood, but then again, you'd have to be pretty desperate to go in there, I guess.
Or pretty formidable.
Right.
Or
I had another idea. The place, the house, and the garden and everything. Does it look like
A mimic?
a mimic? The entire house is a mimic. No,
You
what I
figured
want
out
to know,
My cunning plan.
does the place actually look like recently lived in? Because like maybe like the idea I'm having is that maybe this guy just like came here a few days ago and just decided to
No.
stay here.
He was saying that it looked like it had been, you know, kept up and well tilled.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been
This
lived
definitely looks lived in for some time.
Yeah.
Now, I mean,
So,
is it
I totally
possible this
also-
guy killed the guy and is now living in it instead? I mean, I don't know, but like, it seems like he
He's
seems
wearing his skin?
Right, exactly. He seems comfortable in this environment.
Yeah.
So
No, it totally. Tari, I also had that thought of like, oh, is this just that dude in disguise? But no, he seems legit, and I think that our best course of action right now is to try and just keep going south, and to recognize that probably we'll be wanting to move away from familiar ground and towards more wilderness.
I guess out of character question, because Robot, I probably know this. Heading southwards, is that towards the rivers, like homeland? Is that towards like where the woodland folk and Lana?
yes.
Yeah, towards Roscobel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, Roscobel, yeah. So maybe he's headed home.
Maybe. I don't know what sort of reception he'd expect heading home.
Well, maybe he's headed back to Lana if Lana is meant to be in this area as well.
It's possible. Is Fennis still with us at this point, or has he gone on
No.
ahead to Roscobel? Okay.
Yeah, you had left. Yeah, you had told me that you wanted to send Fennis on after he showed you
Yeah.
the gully and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Just making sure. So yeah.
I would suggest we go south to the main road, see if we find any tracks there, anything else, and if we don't find anything there, we head to the old fort. And
I agree.
All right. We'll
It
want
should
to find
take,
something
like,
first anyway.
2 hours at max, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 45 minutes probably to the old ford from here.
Yeah, the straight way.
And the
but yeah,
straight way,
right.
the straight way actually is probably even closer. The straight way is probably only about a half hour. You
okay.
would guess, yeah.
Let's make our way there and thank the old man for his information.
Yes.
Okay, he nods to you all. And, good travelers to you, and be careful whenever you find him. I don't know if he was enough to keep him to keep quiet about whatever it was that he'd done. He might be dangerous indeed. But anyone who killed Marovich, that's someone who needs to be punished. Tiny Bear, make a quick insight check for me.
Okay.
Yeah, the road leads directly to the door to the secret I'm not allowed to tell you room, yeah. He just
Went real good on insight checks.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're getting the numbers out of the way now. Well, you could just see. I mean, you just can tell that he's got. He said like obviously he just feels very sort of shocked and saddened by the thing with Marovich. So there's definitely a lot of that kind of feeling there. You can tell as he speaks. So All right, so you guys continue to set off down the road. The rest of the trip is very uneventful down to the road because, as I said, it's very close by. When you arrive at the road, there's always a few sort of stragglers that are, a merchant here, a Baldur and Belgo type here and there that are crossing. Sometimes just travelers, occasionally elves or a dwarf coming from Mirkwood to head towards the Misty Mountains and the High Pass or going in the other direction. But as you arrive down towards, I use English all the time, as you arrive at the road as you're heading south, you can see that there is a group of river, you're almost certain, woodmen that are traveling from the south that are coming up to the road, basically the opposite direction of you. And they're heading up to the road. They seem to be heading to the road so as to get onto it and head west. And it's a group of about 6 of them. You can see that they have axes over their at their belts. You can see that they have quivers hung at their backs with these rough wooden bows. But they look like people that, although you're not immediately aware of these people, like they look like woodmen, if you had to guess. They have the look and feel of that crew. And they're coming up, as I said, from the south towards the road, and then it looks like they're going to head west as you guys arrive at the road.
River will looks kind of it's a mixture of emotions, actually. At first, like a kind of instant joy, and then a kind of hesitation, and then a resolution towards joy, and says "Hail" to them, and tries to get their attention, and just to do the woodman thing of meeting up and sharing tidings and things. So
they stop and they turn back towards you and, "Hi, Hail." They seem friendly enough, and one steps forward who seems to be has a kind of a grayish beard, not incredibly old or anything, but definitely has seen some years, and says, "Well met, travelers. Where you be heading this today?"
"Oh, we're heading south, but I'm known as the River of Rosgobel, and I see that you must be coming from Woodman Lands. I just wanted to know what news."
And they say, the lead one says, "Ah, well met indeed. It's a pleasure to find someone who actually knows the value of an axe in these times." And they kind of all sort of chuckle. This test passes for Woodman humor. No, I'm just joking. But they have the easy feel, you can tell, of people who have been around in combat and in difficult circumstances before. And they say, "You travel with quite a crew." And behind you, see you've got Stone, Lillimon, Inga standing next to Lillimon, Tawny Bear silently. It is quite a Robar is there.
Yeah, I'm like literally there with my hood up.
but always brooding off to the side. Like, I feel like every time you see Robar, he's always in profile. Everything's always staring, like an Ingmar Bergman film. Everything's always staring off towards the, in black and white.
We are an amazing album cover.
Exactly. Oh,
Band
man.
AU. That must happen.
We did a quick side note. We did a photo shoot a couple of months ago for my band's 3rd album, which will be coming out in a couple of months. And
I didn't know you were in a band.
Yeah, I play in a progressive rock band. Yeah, but it was on the top of, there was this place in Somerville, Massachusetts, this like literally a fort where the Revolutionary War soldiers were able to see the British coming, and it's one of these, if you go into Massachusetts, everywhere you turn there's something like that. But anyway, we took at the top of it and you can see the skyline of Boston behind us. And so the first picture is us, obviously, it was actually Rock God, who I don't think is in chat right now, but he's a professional photographer, and he ended up meeting up to do this photo shoot. So the first shot is just the Boston skyline, and we're all smiling and grinning because that was obviously okay. And then it was like, now strike an album pose. So like my 2 guitarists are like straight faced, like staring off. I'm like, the sunglasses off, and I'm like, Jesus, it's like he was like pretentious now. Like it just immediately like that was where we were. And of course it was in black and white because that's ultimate pretension. Right, is to create.
I have some amazing band photos to show you guys some point.
You were in a band?
Prop up on my Twitter from when I was from ages like 13, 14 up until 19 or so. So like there is a progression.
I need to see these pictures.
This is why it was.
Share them later on Discord.
This is why he always says the thing about being a D&D sex icon. He's actually a rock star who just is like is on the run, and then that's funny. Anyway, but yeah, I was just, oh man, photo shoots are funny. Anyway, so he looks at all the group of you and sees the kind of combination. And he says, an unusual group of travelers for these times, but I suppose it's understandable now that the lands can breathe a little easier again. Yeah, we've been coming from the south. We're heading up from Woodland Hall. Not a whole lot to report. Well, although there was that business at Stonyford. Now, you know of Stonyford as this, and I'll put a... let me put a text thing here so you guys can see where it is. Right about... Let's see. Make sure I get it right. Okay. So about here...
About where?
I'm going to put it in right now. I'm going to also reduce the text. Stonyford! So, that place right there, let me drop that down considerably. That's too far. There we go. So, Stonyford...
Are you only doing this on the
there it is.
there?
I'm sorry, I guess I thought it was showing you as I was doing it, but I guess not.
There we go. All right.
Okay.
So,
So...
where?
So
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes,
Stonyford's about basically roughly where I put it right there.
Okay.
Stonyford, you know, River, having lived around that area, that Stonyford used to be a ford. It used to be another place that you could cross the river, but it hasn't been an actual ford for hundreds of years. Used to be that the river at this spot was actually passable, but long ago the bridges that crossed the river and the sort of stones that were built up to allow people to get across have fallen into disrepair, and so basically Stonyford has not actually been a ford for a long time. There is in fact an old watchtower that used to be near there as well, and you remember when you were younger, sometimes you would go out and you remember being shown by members of your family this watchtower on a hill, which wasn't much of a watchtower, although it fired your imagination at the time. But now the village is kind of this rundown, ramshackle group of people that, as far as you know, just live by like fishing and hunting and all that stuff. It's certainly not a place that you would expect to be some dramatic, like, yes, Stonyford. It's like, I don't know what the equivalent would be in Canada, but for me it would be like, yes, Granby in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, Granby? Okay. Like, so
Bad
yeah.
business at Granby.
Bad business at Granby. So, yeah.
River looks very startled and says, "What happened at Stonyford?"
And he says, it's a bad business. If you have a minute, we can talk about it here. And he kind of points to the ground as sort of like as if should we sit down and chat about it, because everyone else just sort of sitting around, standing around looking at you.
No, absolutely.
Okay, so you sort of all get. Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, River will make all the introductions and so on. And,
Okay.
And yeah.
He does the same. His name actually, Inga, is Ingar, Ingar, not Ing.
Didn't we already had an Ingar?
We met an
No.
Ingar.
Yes,
Yeah,
Ingar
no.
Longleg.
Ingar Longleg, yeah, the guy from
Ingar Longleg, Bill the Bowman, Tom Lumpy Face, Stindy
God
Brandy
damn it, I
Bucket,
forgot about Ingar. Shoot.
Andy Blackthorn.
Ungar, I meant.
I have to-
God!
But wait, I mean, aren't the Woodmen supposed to basically always go by nicknames and only share their names in like?
Well, yeah, but not necessarily though.
Okay.
It's especially
For why have I been putting myself through all of this?
right,
confusion?
exactly. No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Especially if there are some who are more dedicated to like domestic affairs than others,
Okay.
and there are people who probably, like, as these folks tell you, they actually lived in Woodman Town itself, so they
Right.
weren't in one of the sort of outlying, farms or outlying areas or settlements that might have required that. So Ungar, not Ingar. God damn it! I thought I had not reused a name. But was just talking to you a little bit about what it is that they found. So he explains that they had passed through the village of Stonyford on the way up here, and they had heard tell of a bloody murder. What apparently was told to them is that there was a Bjorning who murdered another hunter, an older man called Rathvik. And according to the tale, although he tells you he has no idea because there's all kinds of village rumors and so forth, Rathvik caught this man in bed with his wife, and the two fought, and Rathvik was mortally wounded. That's the alleged tale. And the name of the person in question is Oderic.
Wait, the Oderic was who was the person in
Was the
bed
man
with the
who
wife?
was correct.
The one with the spear.
And Oderic is the one who murdered this other older man called Rathvik, according to the tale. As you can imagine, Stonyford, which is not exactly news central, this is the kind of news which would have spread like wildfire, obviously, throughout the town.
Oh, did you hear what happened?
Also, Stonyford is literally, as you can tell by the name, right on the river. Not you, but the real river. So it's right on the river. So, it would have been a straight shot up the river, albeit pulling against the current, to be able to get up there.
So, and when did this happen?
They say, well, it wasn't clear, but it was probably a couple of weeks ago. He's sort of fuzzy on when. He just knows that the village was still talking about it. Yeah.
Okay, so let me get this straight. The issue is that Rathvik, did you say?
Correct.
Okay, so Rathvik the Bjorning was no wait, I'm already
Derek's wife.
So that's what it was. Okay, yes. So Rathvik was the one who was sleeping with Derek's wife.
Nope,
Not
other way around.
The other way around.
Other way around.
Rathvik was a Bjorning living in Stonyford.
Rathvik was an older man. No.
Sorry.
Okay. So Rathvik is a Bjorning, but he is an older man who was his wife is who supposedly, according to this tale, Odoric was caught in bed with Rathvik's wife. Right. They fought, and Odoric killed him.
Okay. All right. Tale as old as time.
Supposedly, yes.
Yeah, supposedly. Interesting.
Oh man, Odoric sure has a reputation by now.
Is it? Yeah. And is it normal for, like, is it unusual for a Bjorning to be living in this area?
Not necessarily. This is sort of, I guess the way I would describe it is there are Bjornings all along here, although the farther south you get, the more that Bjornings and woodmen are interspersed. And then as you get farther south, there's more woodmen and fewer Bjornings. But no, it's not surprising. That's why Bjornings and woodmen have fairly good relationships with each other.
Okay.
And
really good relationships in some cases.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey!
Very interspersed. Yeah.
Wow. God. River
That's all.
under her breath says, I guess Odoric was really good with a spear.
Hey!
Anyway, so River looks a little stunned by this information. Says, that is a very bad business. Have you heard anything of this Odoric since then?
And he says, no, not since we left the village, but that wasn't all that long ago. It probably is maybe half a day's travel from here to get down to Stonyford.
Huh. All right. And do you know, was Odoric also, was he local? Did he also live in Stonyford, or was he traveling through?
And he says, well, my impression was that they all knew him. If I had to guess, he lived there. Of course, they could be lying, and maybe someone stole the other one's sheep and they decided to attack each other over it. Who can say, right? And everyone's like, ha ha ha, they all kind of laugh roughly. Like, we've heard those stories, kind of hand wave. You get the impression that they don't have a particularly high opinion of this village. It seemed kind of like not that they hate them or anything, but it just seems sort of like
it's the butt of local jokes.
Yeah, the Stonyford people, it's that side of the tracks/Ford.
You had a brunette, a redhead, and someone from Stonyford, and they all walked into a bar.
They walk into a bar, and the Stonyford guy is like, "Where am I?" Because he didn't actually walk in because he was too dumb to. Yeah, right. That's exactly.
That is such a good joke.
I love that one.
A classic joke. Right.
I want to ask the guy we are talking to, Angar. What's his name, right?
Yes, Angar. Yep.
Yeah, Angar. Could you describe to us what Odoric looks like? Have you ever seen him?
No, I have no idea. This is just the tale I was told. They all said that he was very friendly and polite, though. They said, how could it possibly be that Odoric would do something like this? He seems so quiet, such a good boy, they said.
I see where this is going. So, my dear group, as soon as we ever meet any nice people again, we need to suspect.
Immediately kill them.
Kill them.
Well met, dear Trout.
Just walk stone past them. If they try to stab him, we just slaughter them.
Right. How do you feel about dogs? I love them. All right, you're okay.
That's good. All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to ask, or if we can just conclude our. Actually, in River, once that subject has been exhausted, River will ask, like, so, and may I ask where all of you are heading?
And he says, yes, we're heading to Mountain Hall in the far west. We plan to take the ford over and then travel south. We don't want to deal with the river here. And Mountain Hall, you guys can actually see on your map, is right here. So they're actually traveling northwest and then southwest to get to it because they don't want to get over the river. The south side of the Old Forest Road, the river becomes very fast and difficult to pass easily. You can do it, but it's definitely not easy. And in fact, taking a boat up from Stonyford, if that's what had happened, it can be done with strong people, but it would have been rough going until they got to the ford. Once they got past that, the current's not as bad, and it's not as hard to sort of head upriver. But south of the Old Forest Road, it runs pretty quickly, so getting across that river is no fun.
What's at Mountain Hall?
Mountain Hall has got oh, you're asking them or are you asking me?
No, I'm asking you.
Okay. So Mountain Hall has got a lot of, there are dwarves to be found there. There are also a lot of places where there's like a great deal of craftsmanship that takes place there. A lot of arms and armor is sort of constructed there. So it tends to be a place that now that it's been kind of recaptured, it is a hall that serves as kind of a fortress slash center of commerce for particular kinds of weaponry and equipment and so forth.
Would you say that I've been there before?
I think it's possible that you would have gone past that. Sure. I think that's reasonable. It is pretty far down into the west, but I think it's reasonable to suggest that you would have been there. If you can see that there's actually a pass, a mountain pass that actually leads from the Lone Lands over to the west side of the Misty Mountains. And the Mountain Hall is up a little bit farther in that direction, like once you get over the mountain pass. So I think it's possible that you could have come from one direction or the other to get to that. Sure.
Okay.
All right. So do they seem does the posse here seem willing to like talk further about why they're going to Mountain Hall, or would that be like pressing?
Well, I mean, they seem like it, they say it's not like unusual to hear that people are going there, so I guess they might be like, it's possible they'd be like, why are you asking, like, why do you care, but I mean, I don't know, it wouldn't necessarily be considered a breach of etiquette, but it also might seem a little odd because it's not weird that they'd be heading there. So
okay, that's fine then. I think she'll just leave it at that then. All right, did anyone else have questions, or should we be concluding this to figure out our next move?
I'm good.
Yeah, we got a pretty good, clear idea of who our man is, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
All that's left is to find him.
So, should we be heading to Stonyford?
Well,
Or
first I think we should restock and stay here overnight and then set up in the morning. I mean,
Alright.
it's getting late right now, so
yeah.
no point in
Fair enough.
traveling at night.
Okay. Are these guys moving on right away, or are they camping?
They seem like they're going to be heading off pretty quickly. Also, I want to make one correction. I said dwarves. I should have. There are a few dwarves there, but I should say that the woodmen are more there as well, because it's a major, it's also a major settlement for woodmen on the west side of the Great River.
Right.
So I should have mentioned that as well. There are also woodmen there, quite a few.
Awesome. Okay.
But yeah, they seem to be sort of wishing to head on their way. I mean, they, not impolitely, but they're kind of like, all right, so
no, that's all good.
we go.
We'll exchange further pleasantries and then wish them all best on their route and head on to ours.
Best of luck to you then. And
And
they head off.
They've traveled.
Head over to the road. Okay, and then you guys are heading south towards Stonyford, if I understand what you guys were planning to do.
So
Well,
are
we are
we?
staying at the old fort for now, and then.
Are we? Okay. So well.
I mean, it's late, right? So
It's not late. It's about 3:30, 4. So if you were to continue, you would probably arrive at Stonyford. It's about half a day's travel. You'd probably get there about 10 o'clock at night.
that's
if you
Yeah.
okay.
No,
Okay.
I think we should head on to Stonyford because if nothing else, we should hear firsthand what happened and see if Oderic has any family potentially that he would be or anything like that.
It's a good idea.
Okay.
Tawny Bear, is it Tawny Bear shaking his head, or is that
No.
No, okay.
That was
All right.
friends.
I know what you're thinking.
That it's a little quick for him to be having kids just yet. I mean,
Aw,
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
he could have a brother.
I was thinking on the direction he doesn't have any family of his own, but he doesn't mind taking other people's family. No. So off to Stonyford.
Okay. So you folks are able to travel continuing on down towards Stonyford. I do want everyone to make, again, another either investigation or perception check. This is roughly halfway through, about 3 hours in. So we're closing in about 7 o'clock. It's evening is now arrived pretty much. It's just sort of light, not the great darkness, but...
That's a 5.
Tawny Bear, what did I just get there? Did I get... What
for me, 19.
Okay, I saw like a billion rolls at once.
I just got a natural 20.
Wow, you see all.
I see
you see
You
all.
got a 20, not a natural 20.
Natural 20 is in green.
Oh, sorry, never mind. Okay.
All right, you don't see all then. You see
That's
nothing.
20.
Okay, and I see Robar's got a 5. Robar is like, you're just very invested in yourself. You're like, you see everything within
there.
yourself, and that's all that matters, really. So you see, again, you begin to see a few more of these tracks begin to pop up again. There is, as you go down, a few of these empty meadows, basically, where you see areas that have been matted down. And it seems like this person that you're following was sort of varying between rushing and walking, because there's spots where the grass is really matted down and then other spots where you barely see any passage there at all. But you definitely begin to feel more comfortable now that you're on the right path as you're sort of, heading in this direction. And about 6 hours, as I said, or so, you find yourself arriving at the outskirts of this place called Stonyford. Now, I do want to describe again that there is the first thing you see actually is this small tumble-down pile of stones, which is atop a low hill. That's where once there was a watchtower that you were told, River, that guarded the road in a time when kings ruled the land. But the village is not like the old days. There are a few wooden huts that sort of cluster around the foot of the mound by the river. So the hill, basically the mound that has the watchtower on it, rises, next to the river. And then there are these huts that kind of cluster around in a sort of semicircular fashion, I guess you might say, around it. And that is essentially the great village of Stonyford. And as you are there, sort of arriving up to them, you see these 3 people that are walking out to meet you as you arrive. So if you guys could move your tokens down to here, that would be lovely. Also, I do want to make an arrival roll because you actually have arrived at a destination. So I would like your guide, and I don't recall if it was...
I have it written down. River is the guide.
River is the guide.
Yeah.
River, I would like you then to make the arrival roll. So the way this is you're going to roll a d8. You're going to add +1 to the arrival roll because the terrain you were crossing was fairly easy. And we're going to see what happens.
So D8 plus what?
+1.
+1.
Nice.
Wow. All right.
Nice.
As you arrive at this place, paradoxically, a good roll is bad. You find yourselves destroyed. No. As you arrive, as you folks arrive, you feel the sight of Stonyford and the sight of this watchtower, despite the grimness of your task, fills you with a sense of, I hate to say fills you with determination because everyone's going to give me Undertale jokes, but it fills you with this sense of comfort and a sense of resolve that you've managed to come together to arrive and track down this sometimes difficult to follow path. And all of you feel a little bit comfortable about what it is that you've faced in front of you. You feel sort of inspired, literally and otherwise. And in particular, a few of you, Robar, the sort of brooding quality you had thinking about your home, something about this gives you the sense that you are engaged in a purpose which, although it is not your ultimate overall goal, seems a good purpose for the moment. You're trying to bring a murderer to justice, and basically you're down with that. Like, you feel there's something good about that. Tawny Bear, you obviously feel, knowing what you know of Maravech, that this is kind of sacred quest is a little strong, but this is something which is a good thing to do. Inga, you already had your experience of having someone, first of all, be cruel to animals in your presence, so you were not very happy about that. But also, you had this sense that although you don't know what to make of Tawny Bear and all that, you definitely have felt somewhat more of a deep connection to everyone else. That's sort of like you're part of the crew. It's the first time you can remember in a long time that you haven't been on your own and wandering with just you and Liliman. And River, you for yourself feel a sense of, again, not I'm going to get a murderer necessarily, but this is the right thing to do. Like some wrong has been done, you are going to right that wrong. Mechanically, what this means is that all of you can remove a point of shadow. If you have a point of shadow, you can remove it. Also, it means that all of you gain inspiration. Now, the thing I want to mention about inspiration is, as you know, inspiration is something which chat can contribute to, but I've added a new mechanic to sort of address the problem of people being stacked with inspirations, which is not the point. So inspirations only last for the course of the 2 sessions this month. So next, if you don't use the inspiration, basically by the end of next session, then it's gone. So you have until next session to use that inspiration. And again, you can't get 2 inspirations. Like you can only get the 1 inspiration that you have. Inspiration allows you advantage on an ability check or a saving throw or an attack roll. So
does that mean my inspiration from last year is gone
correct.
And now replaced with this one?
Correct. That's right. Yep.
So nothing changes. Okay.
That's right, basically.
Is there a way to mark that?
I think there is on the sheet. Yeah.
Right
you
at the
have,
top of
like
your
underneath your character name, you have the inspiration box. You just click on the little circle.
Okay, so there we go. So that
And there should be a rune in it now.
Got it.
Little runic F.
Yeah,
Nice.
so good stuff. Okay, but these 3 people now come out to you, and they're 3 very different kinds of people, albeit they are clearly related. First of all, they're obviously Bjornings. You can tell that based on sort of size and that sort of thing. One of them is this guy who's dressed in a grayish cloak. Immediately, all of you have a faint memory of the rumors of Gandalf the Grey and what he looks like, although that's not clearly who this is. But this is a
No
person
blue hat.
who's leaning heavily on a staff, a gray beard with a long gray beard. He has no hat. He's just got this sort of wild long hair, and he sort of walks up heavily, and he seems to be mumbling to himself as he walks up to you. And then next to him is this woman who appears to be maybe in her late 30s, early 40s, definitely has a kind of strong, hard, angular look to her. She has red hair, actually, and walks sort of confidently out slightly in front of the others. And then behind them, the third person is a person dressed in leather armor. He has a strong, what looks like a battle axe, basically, at his belt. And you all notice, this doesn't even take an insight check, that he's got the axe is actually drawn. It's out of his belt, but I mean, it's like hanging by his side. But he's got his hand wrapped around the handle and like continually is like shifting it from side to side, like, moving the axe to his left hand, back to his right hand, sort of playing with it nervously might almost be the way that you would describe it, as you sort of arrive. And as you all presumably draw to a stop as they see you, the person in front stops you and says, "Well met, travelers," and
Well met.
holds up her hand.
Well met.
Oh, so the lady is the one talking.
Yes,
okay.
she is the one talking.
Cool.
And she says, "I am Ava. I am the clan's head woman. This here," and she points to the gray beard to her left on the staff, "is Heartwolf, and this, Williford," as she points to the other guy with the axe. And Heartwolf, leaning on the staff, is, "Strangers. Strangers, yes." And Williford doesn't say anything. He just kind of, his eyes dart nervously to each one of you as he's doing this thing with the axe. And Ava has her arms folded, and she says, "We appreciate your arrival, but would appreciate even more an explanation. Who are you? We do not welcome strangers easily to our homes. Unless you have business here, we would ask that you move on. Woodland Hall is just a few days' travel east of here, and doubtless you'll find better hospitality there. We've suffered enough sorrows in recent days. I beg you to leave us in peace." Her body language, by the way, is super closed, in case you're curious. Like, very much like,
Actually, we do have business here. But first of all, I introduce everybody.
Okay. She
and
nods.
Wait.
what? Inga remembers how you screwed up with the old guy, so now she's taking charge.
Wait, what? I screw up with the old guy.
This is Inga of the.
We got everything we wanted from you.
The Greybeard's like, infighting.
We are looking for a man, a human man, actually, who we have reason to believe passed through here recently-ish. Does the name Oderic ring a bell?
By the way, I should point out that you do not. If I misspoke, I apologize. Oderic was claimed to be also a Bjorning, not a man. Oderic was supposed to be a Bjorning also. Yeah.
No, that was not.
That completely changes my perception
yeah.
of the situation.
Sorry.
No, that also changes everything.
Also a Bjorning. Now you didn't know that until the guy described it to you. The old man described it to you. But yes, Oderic was. Oderic he's claimed was a Bjorning, or at least he seemed like that to him.
Okay, so.
Yeah, but you didn't know that until you met.
Said that.
You didn't know that until you met the old man. But sorry.
Okay. No, okay, that makes so much more sense about why he would have been being taken to Bjorn for a judgment.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
No, the six.
No, it makes more sense as to how he was able to pleasure this guy's wife too, because a human.
Hey-o.
And yet, like, there is still something about the spear connection where, I mean,
He just
we don't.
addressed that.
What? No. Not that spear, the other spear situation.
Oh, not
The,
that.
Wild talk
yes.
rolling in his grave.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway,
it's in his hands right now.
Just the fact that like we don't. So I mean, I've been assuming a connection between Lanner and Oderic, but it doesn't need to be an assumption now because I don't know how Oderic fights with a spear. Just that he throws it really hard.
Yep.
So so that does make a difference. Oh God, why is everything either a double entendre or some kind of like confusing pun on rivers? This is not,
Thank God you're not playing in a James Bond campaign. Like there's nothing but that is all that.
You should call this campaign Rivers and Spears just basically.
Correct.
You shouldn't.
No.
You really shouldn't.
I'll call in a whole different audience. But yeah.
So all this to say, how is Ava actually taking Inga's introduction?
So Ava sort of she's sort of as she introduced herself, and you mentioned, so you rephrase that, I assume, and you say the thing about we're looking for a Bjorning.
Yes.
Inga. Okay. So and when you say Oderic, she says kind of looks at you and says, "This is," shakes her head and says, "I'm not. I don't particularly," and she. It's not so much that she's resisting talking to you. It's more that there's definitely stuff that she'd prefer not to be bringing up or sort of going into detail about, especially not to people that she doesn't even know. What I would like you to do is, since Inga is taking the lead here, we're going to run this as...
I will regret this so hard.
But I know, I'm like, but wait, you have a bard!
Okay, so go ahead. So I'm going to have
what
you
Inga
make...
would do right now.
Yeah, I know. I think it is what Inga would do. So go ahead and make
blood on her axe,
what I want you to do is to make a traditions check for me as we do an
God.
audience here. Now, or
Wait,
this
I
is
should
also
have
an...
traditions because I am a dwarf. I do get a
Oh, right. You're
bonus
just
on that.
assuming you have them. Okay. So let's see. And I want to see here.
Want me to check that?
I want you to... So I'm going to ask you to do that. Let's see. Traditions. I'm going to ask you to make the check at... So in the introduction, you mentioned that you were looking for a man. Did you say why you were looking for them or who had sent you or anything like
I just said
that?
we are looking... I said we do have business here. We are looking for a Bjorning named Oderic. Does the name ring any bell?
Okay. So then I would like you to make... oh, thank you very much. A tradition of checks. That's right, Miss Seychelles. Thank you for the cheer. Okay, so what I would like you to do then is to make that check, but I'm going to ask you to make it at a -1.
Okay, but I'm using my inspiration actually.
That is
Oh,
a wise
Inga
decision.
Wise decision.
Inga is kind of
He's so
like,
lovely.
we are gonna find this guy because,
Gotcha.
that's her thing right now. And she
Very
feels
hard.
kind of like having to take charge.
Do it up.
Kind of,
Advantage it
yes.
is. So,
Fingers
Two
crossed.
natural ones.
I didn't even need it.
Yeah.
So -1 would be 20.
Okay. That is definitely a positive. So let's see. Let's try this. Okay, good. So Ava kind of, you can see that her look kind of softens a little bit, and her arms unfold slightly, and she says, "You must understand that we don't willingly talk about our village's affairs to anyone else, at least not without more information. Who exactly sent you here in the first place?" And you can see as she does this at Williford, the warrior, kind of like, he lifts his... In fact, is there anybody who's looking at any of the... I should have asked you this before. Are all of you focusing just on Ava, or is anyone looking at any of the others to a certain degree? And you can't tell me I'm looking at all of them all the time. I need to know if you're focusing.
I'm staring down the Heartswolf guy.
Okay.
Right now, he seems like the guy that wants to.
I'm trying not to look at Hearthwolf.
Okay.
River is looking at the. I think she's looking at like the dude with the axe because it's an axe, and she's
Make an insight check for me then, River, please.
So
I was looking at Eva because I'm talking to her.
Oh, a what check? Sorry.
I would like you to make an insight check for me, please.
Insight check.
He either doesn't know how to use the axe, and so he keeps moving it around because it's too heavy for him, or he knows exactly how to use it and doesn't want to be caught.
Right, exactly.
The
Yeah,
insight checks are bad.
yeah. The insight
All
checks
of
have not
ours
been
have
working so far. You get the impression, I mean, you don't know for sure, but you get the feeling that he just seems very nervous to you. Now you don't know whether the nerves comes from. It does not necessarily look like which part of the axe do I hold. Like you don't get that impression, but you get the feeling that he's on edge for some reason. That's for sure. And as far as, did I just get a sound?
Yeah, I was hearing
But
that.
It was a mic hum. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
no.
yes. That's the impression that you get from him.
Can I mean, I know that wasn't my role, but does I feel like I'm asking something for her character. Does it seem that has increased since this subject has come up?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe, but just
You
the
should be
conversation continuing may have done that. Like,
Right.
you could have been like, let's talk about the weather. And he's like, Jesus, with these people, you have no
Thought
idea.
they would be gone by now.
Right, yeah, you have no idea.
Okay, so Ava has asked for further information.
Specifically about who sent you. She seems to want to know, like, who are you working for, basically.
So, at this point, I think River at this point would like to interject and say, and in a kind of calming and placating way, that perhaps there is time to discuss these things further, but not under cover of darkness on your threshold. If perhaps we could just be received as wandering guests for the evening, perhaps we could come to know each other better before speaking of these weighty matters.
Ava sort of looks at you and says, although I appreciate your words, and they are sensible, these are in some ways not normal or sensible times. Despite the larger problems in the world being gone, our problems have multiplied, and I cannot easily allow you into the village simply on the assumption we'll speak about these things pleasantly over eggs and bacon in the morning. I understand your theoretical reasons for being here, but as yet my question as to why you have come remains unanswered.
We were sent by Bjorn, right?
Yes.
If I remember. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Somebody
we
better
were.
say it because he's about to.
No. So I turn back to Eva, and we were sent here by Bjorn himself to find this Oderic person.
And so Ava sort of looks, and when she says that, all three of them, first of all, the Greybeard is kind of like, this guy, Bjorn, times are dark then. As he rocks back and forth in his staff. And Ava, now, I want to point something out. Actually, Robar, make an insight check for me. You're noticing something about the reaction of the other two to him, possibly. Unless you roll a 1, in which case you're like, everything's great.
It's an 8.
No, but an 8. Jesus, these insight checks. You notice that they both look at him and seem to, how do I describe it? They're sort of looking at and watching him for a bit. Not like, oh my God, I can't believe he's stuff, but sort of like almost waiting to hear something from him, and then they turn back to you. It's not. It's sort of a deference, perhaps, but it seems strange because he just seems to be mumbling. And then they look back, and Ava look back at you, and Ava says, "Well, if Bjorn himself sent you, there must be a reason. Why exactly? Well," and she kind of looks around at all of them, and she says, "Very well. I'll bring you in to speak about this, but before you come in, I demand that you hand your weapons over to Williford. We can't have a chance for more sorrow in this place." And Williford, as she says this, literally like lifts his axe. Not like he's going to attack you, but sort of like, oh, this is the moment. Like, okay, here's where the rubber hits the road.
River very like fluidly and simply will just and drops them at her feet.
Okay.
Or rather lays them at her feet because they're her weapons and she treats them well.
Okay. Leads them carefully with reverence. Okay.
Inge hands over her axe very, very, very reluctantly.
Yeah, this is the scene from Two Towers, right? Where they're given the thing before they go into the Golden Hall of Metacelt. They're just like handing over all the weapons. It's okay.
And then she starts like to reveal the other weapon she's carrying
right,
around.
like this. Yes. Now I do.
No, sadly she doesn't have so that many weapons. I wish she did just so that I could do that scene right now.
I do want to ask actually, as they're handing over these things, are you all on it? First of all, are you agreeing to hand over weapons? Secondly, are you all doing so without trying to hold anything in reserve, or are you going to try to see if you can sneak one past them?
I keep my knife.
You do. Okay.
River's putting all her stuff there, and yeah.
I mean, her knife is not concealed, but it's like I don't know if that's like a thing that people know.
What else do I have?
It's like in the Middle Ages, it was that people always carried a knife around because it was cutlery for them.
And I was going to say,
so she does have a knife like that on her belt at all times, and she just keeps it there and sees if anybody said something.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a
Otherwise,
minute.
she just gives her axe and her bow away.
I think Robar feels dangerous enough without a weapon, so he'll hand over the items.
Okay, Tawny Bear, are you handing over the staff then?
You would not part an old man from me.
He's walking somewhere. Who's someone like, I told you to forbid the wizard's staff. God damn it.
Love that man so much.
Yeah, Brad Dreif's awesome in that role.
Yeah. He'll give it up. He doesn't need it for.
They do, Inga. As you do this, Williford says, for the first time, speaks and says, "Your knife too." His voice kind of cracks.
Fine.
And he takes it. Suddenly the campaign.
She does this thing where she like draws it and then like elegantly flips it over in her hand. So
Okay,
that
good.
She like points it with the.
I should
handle
make you
first.
make a check just to see if that actually happens, or if you accidentally impale yourself and like, damn it! No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
No, I'm kidding. No, you're able to
Okay,
do that
good
fine.
thing that you are kidding.
I'm
Because...
I'm totally joking. I wasn't actually going to have you make a saving throw. Okay, so you're able to lay the weapons, and she says, "Very well. I'd ask you to come with me then." And she turns, and before she leaves, she whispers something in Heartwolf's ear. And Heartwolf doesn't do the thing where you lean back. He just seems to be still stumbling, mumbling back and forth. But he says, "House and scene of the crime, house." And you notice that they hold their gaze on that man slightly longer than you would expect. It's almost like they're getting cues from him, or they're waiting for a device or something like that. He's not mind controlling them or anything, but it seems like he's telling them things that they understand, even though he just seems like some crazy old guy who's mumbling. And then they all sort of head off in the direction of the village, and assuming that you follow them, they bring you to this empty house, which is near the riverbank. I told you there was like a semicircle around this watchtower, and so to the leftmost side of it, the westernmost side, right near the riverbank itself, is this one house. The front door, as you get close to it, seems to be loose, like it's been was kicked off its hinges or something, and now has been brought back into like fixed basically, and like recentered. And as you enter the house, you see that the house is empty, but the inside of it looks to be quite a mess. The tables are overturned. There's like the mattress has been ripped and is like lying on its side. There's the fireplace has ashes like scattered about the room, and there are a few wooden chairs. And as they come in to the room, they wait for you all three to enter. It's not a huge house, but it's enough to accommodate all of you if you want, even Tawny Bear.
Like immediately as they come in to the room, like Inge's just like, what happened here?
And Heartwolf, for the first time, kind of grins and says, Kinstrife, yes, Kinstrife.
Kinstrife?
And Ava sort of looks grim. And when you all, assuming that you all enter, well, I'm going to answer your question in a minute. She was waiting for you all to enter. Assuming you all do, then Williford takes up sort of a guard position almost by the door, the inside of the door. And Ava looks around and says, "This right here was Odoric's house." And she sort of discusses a little bit about what she knows, which is she says, as she's kind of looking around you, she says, "We don't have a great deal of information, but before you come here, we must know, has Odoric been dealt with? We don't know why you're back here. We thought we would never hear of him or anything relating to him again."
What do you mean?
And she says, "Well, Odoric was taken away for judgment."
River sighs and says, "We are here because Maravich, who took him for judgment, was found dead with missing his sword, and we are basically looking for Odoric to see if he needs to be brought to justice for his murder in addition to whatever his crime was here."
And she sort of, her eyes widen. Williford, if he was nervous before, now he's like looking around like he expects Odoric to like jump from the roof. Like he's just like, looking everywhere. And Heartwolf goes, "Curses and ghosts, curses and ghosts, curses and ghosts." And Ava says, These are grim tidings. Odoric is a murderer and a kinslayer. We thought that by sending him to the Carrack for judgment, we were done with this evil."
No, unfortunately, we've been tracking him. And his steps seemed bound south from whatever spot we found the boat at the river. He seemed to be bending his steps back south, and having heard a shadow of the tale of what happened here, we thought that we should come and see whether we could learn anything further about him, about what happened, and about what sort of man we are tracking.
And she says, well, and she sort of lowers her voice a little bit and says, "Before I answer that, you must tell me what your intentions are with this story. I know you say you want to track him down and seek judgment, but what of the people of Stonyford? My people are troubled. We're a simple folk. We never would have expected something like this to happen here. I thought the shadow, with the destruction of the dragon, would recede. Instead, it seems only to have grown to engulf all of us. Will you, in seeking justice for him, provide a good account of Stonyford? Or will you level us with the same that most of your kin do?" And she says this specifically to you, River, like.
I see.
Yeah.
Inge looks very puzzled at River because she has no idea what she's referring to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Sorry. River says, with great solemnity and not a little a weightiness. What were her words exactly? Will you do right by?
Will you give a good
Provide
account?
a good account.
Or give it a good accounting.
Yeah.
We will give an honest and a true accounting of Stonyford, and also we will render any assistance that we can to you if you are, as you say, troubled by shadow. It is our business. We have made it our business to assist people where we can and to route the shadow wherever we find it.
And she nods. I want now. Let's see.
I want to also a quick question. I have that shadow sense thing. Is there like, I mean, when we what is it called? No. Okay.
No.
There's no dark foreboding.
There's a lot of dark foreboding, but not the dark foreboding, if you know what I mean.
Gotcha.
No. Although the idea that Stonyford seems to have been affected by this, there does seem to be a weight hanging over this village, but it doesn't seem to be unnatural per se, as much as it is like, oh my God, what's going on?
Everyone's dealing with bad things. Yeah.
I would like you then, River, we're going to have you make a final audience check. Either presumably traditions or persuasion is what we're looking at. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask you to do this at +1, so you'll get +1 to this. This is to see what the final determination is on how they want to handle you. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Let's see. Okay. She nods and kind of looks back at Williford and says, "Oh, calm down there, man. There's not going to jump out from their tunic." And Williford kind of sort of like almost like taken aback, like, oh, and like sort of settles down. And Heartwolf, his mumbling, kind of the curses and ghosts sort of dies down into just a general like, sort of thing. And Ava says, "I know much of what the rest of the village will know. I'll tell you what I know of the story, but if I were you, I'd gather information from others, because I don't know that my information is going to be that useful. People, some of them anyway, won't tell me what happened. I think they're afraid that I'm going to try to seek others out for punishment, and indeed they might be right." And Heartwolf sort of grins. You can see there's kind of yellowish, somewhat broken teeth in his mouth, and he says, punishment, punishment. And she says, "These are dark times, and you must apologize for our suspicion, but this is the times in which we find ourselves, in Stonyford anyway." She says, "The news that we have is, well, you see, Oderic never really fully fit in here, or at least that's what many used to say. Oderic's family was killed by outlaws when he was a young child, so in a way, the entire village sort of raised him. He was always respectful and quiet, but a little, well, strange. Odd, I suppose. Nothing that anyone could have ever pointed to as being something that would have driven into murder, of course, but, well, a little odd nonetheless. His main foster parent was an old warrior whose name was Helmgut. Helmgut was the father of Brunhild. And
Brunhild, really?
Brunhild, yep. Literally Brunhild.
Yeah, I know.
Literally Brunhild.
What was the foster father's name?
The foster father's name was Helmgut, which is literally Helmgut. Oderic was...
Got a helm.
He's got a helm and a gut. Okay. So, she goes on and says, well, Oderic was around the same age of Brunhild, and they grew very close to each other. Some said perhaps too close. A few years ago, Rathvik came down from the mountains to settle here. He was a great warrior, and in fact became one of our best warriors. When we had an attack of the winter wolves some years ago, he was the one who drove them back. He even killed a warg by himself. And Williford sort of nods furiously, like he's read everything about this dude. Like, yeah, he did that. And then the other thing was when, and I have his baseball card, that kind of thing.
And in episode 14?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the truth is that what people don't realize, yeah. So anyway, he doesn't do that, but he's definitely nodding furiously. And Heartwolf, as he says that, sort of says, "Aye, war, swords and shields to be found, yes. and mumbles some more things to themselves. And she says, "We obviously welcomed Rathvik with open arms. Anyone who can fight like that is of valuable use there. Well, you know what it's like living out here," and she gestures to you, River. And she says, "And you," and she looks up for the first time at you, Tawny Bear. She says, "If you've spent any of your time as one of us, you know that living out here can be dangerous." And she looks at the other two of you, Inga and then Robar, and she says, "I'm not sure that a Dunedain understands himself. You live a long time, but sometimes I wonder how much the Dunedain actually see. But maybe that's just my own suspicion talking." And then she, you get the impression that's not like she's pissed at you. It's just sort of a general, like, this is what I hear about the Dunedain, and...
General bit of light racism.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah, exactly. Small garden variety racism. Anyway, she then turns back to the story, and she says, "Well, one night, and here's where the story gets, well, fuzzy, Odoric and Rathvik fought, and Odoric killed Rathvik. All this is almost certainly true. By the time we arrived, we found Rathvik's place had been basically we found this place had been basically destroyed. Odoric and Brunhild were supposedly, some say, together right there," and she points over to the now destroyed bed. Rathvik fought. Odoric killed him, and frankly, that was pretty good work, I'd say, in terms of the ability to do it. I wouldn't have expected anyone could have taken Rathvik, although by that point Rathvik was somewhat older. Even when he married Brunhild, he was kind of older, but we thought it was, well, it seemed like a reasonable tack to take, given how valuable he was to the village. After killing Rathvik, Odoric surrendered and confessed his crime to Helmgut, and Helmgut was the one who told us about it and asked for Odoric to be sent to the Carrick. When Merovich showed up here and took charge of the situation, we thought that we had dealt with it as best we could, although how we were going to put the village back together again after something like this was not known. There's only about 30 of us in the entire village. Brunhild, of course, has been inconsolable since then. But that's about all that I know of it. I can say that some in the village probably have more or fewer charitable opinions than I do. I used to think that Odoric was a good lad. Obviously, I had badly underestimated the evil within him. Must have been that way since he saw his parents killed.
Ava, was Odoric particularly strong? Was he known for his prowess with a spear? Was he a notable warrior as well?
And she said, "Well, anyone who's able to defeat Rathvik has got to have some ability."
No,
Yes.
but before that, before he fought Rathvik.
And she thinks for a minute, and she says, "He certainly could hold his own as a warrior, aye, but I wouldn't say that he was incredibly strong or way beyond what anyone else had. But now that I think of it, well, there was that oddness about him now. I mean, who knows what he could be doing when we weren't paying attention to him?" And Heartwolf again says, "Curses and ghosts, the insides, the insides." And Ava turns to him, and then Heartwolf does this, and he seems to get a little more agitated. "Ghosts, village all fall apart, all darkness and darkness." And Ava puts a hand on his shoulder and says very softly, "Father, it's all right." And Heartwolf sort of dies down into mumbling again. When she turns back to you, you can see that she might have just the hint of a little tear in her eye, but you're not sure.
How long has he been thus?
And she says, "Several years. He was our village's headman. But he's, well..." And she stops, and she says, and looks up and says, "But there's still much of him in there, and he still has wisdom to be found, if you can overlook the outside." And she seems like, almost like, "Get the F away from my dad," like, is very, yeah. But also, she makes it clear that he wasn't this way after this happened. Like, he's been, in your minds, on the decline, in her minds, attaining a different state or something over the last few years.
So, River, sensing that this is perhaps a sore point, first says, "He clearly taught you very well."
Aye, that he did.
He mentions curses and ghosts. Do you have stories about curses and ghosts in this village?
And she says, She looks sort of uncomfortably at you, and then she looks back at Williford. And Williford sort of shakes his head several times, like, and she looks back and says, and sort of gives you a long, searching look, and then sighs and says, "It's not something we should talk about, but, well, in the old days, when the watchtower rose above, there was a great battle here. And it started when the orcs ambushed us, this village. Well, not us, in my grandparents' time and before. They ambushed the village. My pa, that's my grandfather, used to tell me stories of what happened when they came upon him. Deep in the night it was, actually not unlike this, and cold. And then out of the frost it felt like they materialized, he said, broke into the houses, burned them down, killed and murdered, and she just sort of lowers her head. Not many survived. The ones who did are the ones whose descendants we are. The survivors." And her father rocks back and forth. He says, "The deaths in the cold."
That is a sad tale.
And she nods tightly and she says, "It was one that I thought we had put behind us. We were planning on building our fishing and getting to the point where we could perhaps begin to trade more with the other places, make Stonyford into something that it used to be, that my pa used to tell me of, instead of a village like this one. But now the people look at each other, if they even do, through the sides of their eyes instead of straight on. They keep themselves in their homes at night, and during the day they only come out for brief periods. Everyone whispers and talks about everyone else. Even the one thing that could have made us at peace again was the news that O'Durk was taken care of, and now we don't even have that."
It is a heavy tale, and no wonder that it weighs everyone down.
She says, "I don't know whether this would be of help to you, but if I were you, I would try to find out what happened from the other villagers here. All of them may know more than I do. I only arrived after it had happened, and the only ones who really know are the people who were in the room. Rathvik, who's dead now, obviously Odoric, and then Brunhild. And perhaps Helmgott, too. Helmgott has been not seen since the incident. He's been in his home with the door locked. Brunhild I've seen a couple of times, mostly with her eyes red from crying, though."
I think we should certainly want to speak to them, but perhaps in the morning, if it's all right for us to spend the night here. Then
she nods. "Yes, it'll be fine, but just please try to take some ease when you speak to the other villagers. They are still somewhat raw, and I'll pass the word around that you're allowed to be here. But if they treat you with suspicion as I did, please forgive them. They are as much troubled by the darkness as we are."
Understood. Thank you very much for all you've told us and for your hospitality.
And they nod, and she says, "It's not a very hospitable place, but you could stay here, this place that is empty, or make camp outside if you wish. Your weapons will be returned to you when you leave the village. In the meantime, Williford will keep hold of them. If you need anything else, of course, you can find me. Mine is the house somewhat towards the center of the village, and there's one sort of slightly away from that semicircle hut. It's really more than a hut. It's kind of a regular house, which presumably is the one she's talking about as she points out the door, which Williford opens for her. Two of them leave, and as they leave, Hartwolf turns back to all of you and puts his hand, Tawny Bear, on your shoulder and looks at you, and with these piercing eyes, these are not, though, the eyes of a madman. He looks at you with these piercing eyes, and then he says, Look beneath what you hear. It is not at all mumbled. It's not at all like brr, brr, brr. It's like clear. Look beneath what you hear, he says, in those words. And then, ghosts and curses. And then he goes back to that and turns and kind of shuffles out. And he did this, by the way. Ava was just at the door, so Ava didn't really hear him say that, but he said it very clearly to you. Inga, you were there and heard him say it, like he wasn't just whispering it. But he definitely was sort of looking into Tawny Bear's eyes. Decidedly not the eyes of a madman. Okay, and they leave. It's 10 o'clock. You guys are alone.
Inga
Wow.
looked super uncomfortable as soon as Eva started talking about Brunhild, and so Inga is just like without a word leaving leaving the room and going to take care of her horse.
Yep.
River looks very troubled and says, "You know, it's terrible. I grew up hearing the jokes that people would make about Stonyford and people from Stonyford, and, you know, the sorts of jokes people tell about those who are close enough to be kin but far enough away to be strangers. And it strikes me now that all of those jokes were like papering over a wound that had been left to fester. That perhaps when they needed other folk most, others drew away instead and made jest of their pain instead of helping. It's a terrible thing. I really want us to help this place, not just to find Odoric, but to put something right here that's gone wrong.
Robon nods. We keep finding broken places, but I'm not sure we leave him off any better when we do.
We met by rescuing a hobbit. I have to think that we leave good in our wake, hopefully, somewhere. But the other thing that troubles me, though, is that the man we're tracking had enormous strength. I mean, you told us about the 2 orcs on 1 spear and that sort of thing. That doesn't sound like... I don't know. I have to wonder if there's something darker at work than Kinstrife, something worse than that, something festering. What did he say to you, Tawny Bear, before he left?
And Tawny seems kind of distracted for a moment and finally brings himself back into focus. Look beneath what you hear.
It's good advice generally.
I think there was more to it than that. The other thing which occurs to me is that my initial thought, perhaps those of you as well, was that he was coming here. To now know that this is where it started. There's no way he was coming here. And he has been moving at speed, not resting nearly as much as it would seem that he should. If we are to catch him, either we need to move at equal speed and not rest as much, in which case when we find him, we will be just as exhausted as he is, or we hadn't worked beyond that point yet.
He does move as though something pushes him onwards.
As if something rides him? Is that possible? Have you heard
There,
tales of such things before?
yes, this whole thing is bringing back memories of my homeland, which I visited recently with Inga. There was a darkness upon that land. Could affect people there. Not sure that it ever really left. I think we just did.
Shadows tend to do that.
Interesting. Does River know any stories about people being like possessed or things like that?
Sure. There's definitely cases where people have been possessed. There were certain rumors that wizards could do this, but also that
A wizard did it.
spirits could sometimes do that of different types, or corruption of other forms can certainly take place. It also needs to be said, by the way, that since you don't really know what happened at the murder scene, other than just there was an orc with with a spear thrown through it, that could have also been. Maravich could have thrown it. I mean, you don't know. It's possible that someone else threw it, a Bjorning threw it. It seems hard to believe that a human could have thrown it unless they were exceptionally strong, but it's possible. But it seems likely that that's a Bjorning type of throw from
But
some,
he is a Bjorning, though, isn't he?
Yes, he is, and so is yes. But I'm just saying, they were all Bjornings that were in that boat. So I just wanted to point that out. But yes, it is certainly possible for people to be possessed, and there are stories of that. Not ones that you've heard of late, but that doesn't mean.
Well, only 6 months or so passed, we encountered a being of shadow that was feasting upon goblins in a marsh. We tried to track it down, but we couldn't find it.
Almost me.
It was a specter or something.
Interesting. So we are actually in the murder scene right now, right?
Yep.
Like we are where it happened.
Yep.
Can we look around? I know we
move
only
the
have like
police
9
tape
minutes left.
and,
Yeah,
so
right.
forth. Yeah. Yes, you certainly can, of course.
Tawny Bear, get up. You're sleeping in the murder scene. Oh,
Sorry. Yes, you can do that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, also, I mean, I don't know how we want to sleep here, but if everything is a mess anyway, then I don't know if we want to be tidying
we
it
don't
up.
have to clean up after ourselves.
Yeah. But yeah, so should we be investigating?
Sure thing.
Okay.
Alright.
So I mentioned a little bit about the room, but I'll describe it again just so you can tell me. So you've got the fireplace, you've got these. It basically looks like there was a big fight somewhere in this room. The table is thrown over. There are these 3 chairs, although one of them wobbles as if it was maybe bent or thrown. I mentioned that the door itself was kind of loose, as if it had been removed and then sort of put back on its hinges somehow. The bed is a complete disaster. The mattress is ripped and torn. There are ashes from the fireplace sort of scattered about the room. So that's kind of the scene as you know it. So you need to tell me where in particular you want to focus your attention for looking.
I think River wants to look towards the fireplace.
Okay.
That's where I was thinking of looking too.
Okay.
Hearthminder.
Go ahead and
not-
make.
Let's go and mind that hearth.
Not just that.
So I'll come to Robar and Inga and find out what you guys are looking at in a minute. For River and.
I'm not looking at anything. I'm outside.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's
Oh.
right. You're attending to Liliman. I beg your pardon. That's correct.
Sorry.
That's quite right. So I will come to what you're doing in a minute, Inga. So, but I'll go to what Robar's looking at in a second. For Tawny Bear and for River, go ahead and make an investigation check for me then, as you're looking in this fire.
Specifically, what Tawny Bear is looking for is to see if, since you mentioned that there's ash all over the place, to see if there are any footprints in that ash, whether the ash was spread before or after people moved through.
Okay.
16.
Okay. So what both of you were able to discover is these ashes clearly were scattered. The way you would describe it is at different times. Like looking at the fight, it seems odd to you that that somebody would have been. The fireplace isn't all that big. Like the idea that someone would have been maybe thrown into it, okay, maybe. But then the idea that people would have been dragged out of the fire and all of these ashes, it almost looks as if they've been swept onto the floor from the fireplace. And it looks like there are. There was some. Basically, it looks like there were ashes that were on the ground. And then more ashes since then taken from the fireplace that were basically brushed over the top of the old ones. If you can imagine going out of time for a moment, fingerprints powder. Imagine then someone dumping a bunch of powder on top of the previously existing fingerprint. That's kind of what it seems like to you. Now, when the 2 things were done, I mean, it could have been someone did the first thing and then 10 minutes later they did the other. You don't know. But definitely there's one that seems more like crash, bang, something happened. And then the second one seems like it was literally the ashes. You could see even brush marks where they would have been swept out from, the fireplace onto the floor.
Does it look like there might have been something that was being looked for in the fireplace, or
No way to know that.
Okay, no way to know. So there's nothing, like fragments or anything.
No.
Huh.
Just ashes.
That's so interesting.
Ponder that. Robar,
yeah.
what are you doing?
I think he's quite, disturbed by the news that we've been given and the similarities that this has towards his own homeland and the shadow which fell upon his land. So
Right.
I think while he says he's looking, I don't think he really is. I mean, he's kind of absent-mindedly kind of looks over things and kind of glazes over because he's quite worried at this point.
Okay. All right.
So sorry.
So no. So then what I'll have you do is I'll have you do an investigation check, but I'll actually have you do it at disadvantage because you're actually focusing on something else.
It's an 8.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a big fight here. One thing you do note is that there are a number of tracks like all over the floor. And boot tracks, definitely nothing. Then they all seem to be roughly the same approximate size, but they are not clearly all made by the same person. And you're not really looking very closely, so you don't know how many there are,
Right.
but definitely more than one person made this set of tracks through the ashes and dust on the floor. Inga, what are you doing outside as you're taking care of Liliman?
Nothing in particular, just like kind of she is like just feeding the horse and like being very much lost in thought.
Okay.
Yeah. Not really paying attention to anything.
Inga, as you do this, as you're taking care of the horse, you can see that the village is still quiet. It's obviously late and dark. But then you see some figure coming towards you. And as it gets closer, you actually see that it's Heartwolf, who is shuffling towards you on his staff. Not like, coming at you like with murderous intention, but he's just shuffling towards you. And he, if you allow him to, he comes up alongside you.
She probably doesn't even really notice.
Okay, because you're too focused on that.
Yeah.
So he comes up alongside, and so in that case, the first thing you hear, you may sort of possibly have seen him from a distance but not paid much attention, but then you hear kind of his mumbling about ghosts and dwarfs here.
Whoa.
Yeah, you're like, eh?
Hello.
And he's just he's kind of rocking back and forth, kind of looking at you. Dwarves and men, and dwarves and men. Dunedain, yes.
Right.
Mumbling as he looks around, and you see he's looking down at you, and he puts out a hand, and he lays it sort of like quickly, so you're not really paying attention, on Liliman's mane. But the minute he does that, you can see that he quiets down, and Liliman doesn't react, doesn't shy away. He quiets down, and his mumbling takes on a kind of almost sonorous quality, a kind of, and you hear what sounds like a little bit of music drifting through it, like a humming.
Are you all right?
As he's petting the horse. His eyes seem far away, he doesn't answer you.
Hello.
And then he finally brings his hand back. Liliman seems very calm to you, kind of nuzzles against you. And then he leans down to you very close, like sort of unnaturally so, like kind of leans right over and says, it knows. Below the surface, yes. Below the surface, it knows. Listen to him. Now, when he says this, the listen to him is not mumbled. And you don't know if he's saying listen to him like the horse, or listen to him somebody else, or listen to, you don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking
Exactly.
him. Who?
And he looks at you and then, dwarfs and he leans back up and then shuffles away.
Right.
And I think with that,
Inge is
as he mumbles
completely
away,
confused.
as he drifts away, we're going to, it is just about 3. So we will close up the session for today. We have a very good CSI thing set up, I think, for next week. We get to do some witness investigation. So that should be interesting.
Were we?
We'll pair up into good cop, bad cop. It'll be great.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
be bad cop.
I was going
Fortunately-
to say,
yeah.
somebody else had better be bad.
And fortunately, in the house, there's a 2-way mirror, so you could just look there and like knock. I'm just joking. You can't actually do that. But yes, so yeah, that should be fun times. Really,
Were we
very.
told- sorry, were we told how the murder was done?
Well, you stabbed, but you don't know
Okay.
how, under what circumstances, because again, she only got there after the thing was already over. So,
Right.
Yeah, stabbed.
We'll be able to ask Brunhild about that and everything.
Yep,
If-
you've got Brunhild here. You have still you've got Helmgut, the foster fathers around. You got the other villagers who all have their things to say. So it'll be a very interesting next day, I think, for the party. Excellent role playing today, by the way. Some really good role playing moments. Good work with your characters. I think all of you have a good sense of who your characters are, and I really appreciate that. Nothing drives me up a wall more than people are like, here's what I will do to maximize potential party efficiency. I'm just like, no, come on. Like, you're real people, so you're not...
We're the opposite of that.
Or
We're like
the opposite,
group
which is like, how can I
party.
screw up everybody? Right. Or how can I pretend to be chaotic neutral and a jerk? Yeah, like neither of those things is true. So anyway, but yeah, fun times, guys. It'll be interesting to see how you handle the investigation. But that will be for next week. For now, I will start down below as I usually do and say thank you as always to Amal, and I'm glad that you are healed up and back with us. And where will the fine people, is there anything you want to talk about in your own work, or where will the people see you next before next Tuesday?
No, there's actually a bunch of really neat stuff happening in the second half of January, some of which I may be able to talk about by next session. I've got, actually, I haven't said this in words on the internet, but I think it's okay to say at this point. I have a poem coming out at Fireside Fiction that's been illustrated by Molly Crabapple.
Oh, cool.
She is so phenomenally amazing, and it's a very dear to my heart poem, and it's been given this. It's not just illustration. It's like Fireside has been working to make this like an interactive broadsheet with these beautiful illustrations and things, and that should be coming out by just before Confusion, which I will be at, hopefully, borders and weather willing. Confusion is a convention in near Detroit. It's in Novi, at the Sheraton Novi. Sorry, the Novi Sheraton. Novi is a place in Michigan, which is cool. It's a cool word. That means 9. But anyway, so I'll be there. The 9. I'll be there from. So the con is from January 18th to 21st, and that's when I intend to be there. I'll be on panels. I'm going to have a reading with Max Gladstone from our co-written epistolary Spy versus Spy time travel novella, which I am super excited about. So that is what's coming up, and I'll probably say all of that again next week. But there are 2 really exciting things happening at the end of the month that I can't talk about yet, but that I'm really excited to talk about. So I hope that by next week I can talk about them.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing more about it. That's awesome. Cool stuff. And yeah, I want to try to get out to Confusion sometime when I can, but I'm not able to. I am going to Farpoint for people. I mentioned that I might be going to that, so I'm going to the Farpoint convention in Baltimore next month. So I'll be there for that. But anyway, cool. Thank you so much, Amal. As always, I look forward to hearing more, and we will see you next Tuesday. Moving right along, Terry, thank you so much. You were the last person who got the cliffhanger. At least you weren't on top of a spider web this time, though.
Not
At least
this
it was
time.
just, you know.
Or in the middle of Goblin Cave.
Right, yeah. While holding the pot. Oh, man, that was the best. But yeah, so thank you so much as always, Terry. When will the fine folks hear and see from you next?
Well, actually, next Tuesday, I suppose. Other than that, I don't have any concrete plans in the near future. The next convention I'm gonna be at is gonna be in early summer, which will be the Comic Salon in Erlangen. Which is gonna be awesome because it's the best convention ever.
Okay.
It's gonna be from May 30th to don't let me lie, July 3rd, I think. June.
June
not
3rd.
July.
I was like, wow,
June
that is a
3rd.
long
No,
time.
not an entire
5
month.
weeks
No,
of-
it's a long weekend there.
Okay.
No, it's a long weekend. I mean, that's a long way off, but I've been looking forward to this for like 2 years now because this convention is only every 2 years, sadly. So yeah, it would be awesome if anybody would come step by there because it really is the best convention ever. So yeah, that's the only thing I can announce at this point.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, more. I will also not say anything else. Just there are things, people and stuff, and all that. But I am continue to feel better, Terry, and thank you
Yes.
as always. And we will see you next week, of course, as well. Moving right along, Will. Again, when won't we be seeing you? You're the man with a plan. But no, what is your next thing that you want to talk up that you got coming on next?
Well, next thing that I'll be doing today is in a couple hours' time, I'll be streaming on my own channel, Encounter Roleplay. Exciting news for me this month is that I've been picked up by a sponsor, dndice.co.uk. So that's really exciting for us because I have financial stability for a year,
Yay!
which is like
Amazing.
hugely relieving for me. So yeah, we're actually working on a few really exciting sponsors for next year. So yeah, that's my exciting news.
It's awesome.
I moved into a new house. It's much nicer than the last one. Now we can afford it. So yeah, everything's looking up for us. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. This one's a really nice one for me as well. Every Tuesday is kind of nice, sort of mental health break going into the realms of Middle Earth and just getting lost in that for a little bit. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, you can find me all over the place. I'm probably doing something at all times. But yeah, that's my little bits of news.
Cool, good stuff, man.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's
Thank you.
super awesome.
Cool.
Congratulations, dude. I'm not surprised. Good stuff. We will, of course, be talking more with Will soon. We will see him next Tuesday. And last but certainly not least, of course, this person I know we'll see on this channel before that. And that, of course, is Trendane. So, Tren, where will the fine folks see you next before me? Where will they see you elsewhere?
I'm really tired now, and I'm having a hard time remembering.
Blades?
Possibly, depending. I really hope we do get to continue the Blades in the Dark over on Speedy's channel. Not so speedruns, because we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger where my character has finally gone back to his homeland, and he's lived in another city and has gotten used to doing things the way that he does things back there, not so much according to the traditions of his family. So he finally used this really cool lightning spell that he just laid waste to this entire alley full of critters that were coming at them like zombie sort of shambly thing. And just, and his niece, who was on top of a building, who's also a whisper, like, he was like, no, what are you doing? And he's like, it took care of the problem. And she's like, no. And so he's like, the other option is I can summon one of these demon princes. And she pulls out a knife and is like, I'm going to stop you. And I'm like, wait, hang on. So that's where.
Oh, that's a nice work by Johnny on that cliffhanger. Then.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah.
I dig it. I personally don't believe in the cliffhanger. I think it's important not to make players wait for resolutions of problems. I in no way think that it's a good idea to let people. Okay, so curses and ghosts, curses and ghosts.
To quote Neil Gaiman, one of his characters, Mr. Vandemar, is it nice to lie?
Oh man, I love cliffhangers. Anyway, that's cool, man. I am looking forward to that. You will also see for sure Trendane on Friday when we will continue our vocalists. That'll be this Friday, and we'll be doing 2064 read-only memories, which has been a fun time as well.
That's a lot of read-only memories.
There's a lot of read-only memories, so we're going to be doing more of that on Friday. All right, I'm going to wrap things up, and I will let these wonderful people go. I cannot say how much I have enjoyed. I've so much enjoyed this campaign because of the Tolkien stuff, but also because I wanted all players that were good people, I knew would get along with each other, and are also Tolkien fans, and all of that is true. So I really could not be happier with my players. I love the feel of this campaign, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. So I will look forward to seeing you all.
This is so much fun. I love this so much.
I'm glad. I really am glad. I have been having
it's
been a great joy to have you guys with me in this campaign. It's been great. So I will see more of you wonderful people next week. Chat, can we get some love love for the wonderful players. And I want to thank Trendane and Will and Terry and Amal, and I will see all of you wonderful people next week. Thanks, everybody.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
All right. There we go. All right, folks, that was good stuff. Man, I'm really, really enjoying this. And I should say, by the way, I should have mentioned this to them as well, but they have been getting a lot of people have been talking on YouTube and elsewhere about this. They've really been enjoying this one. And they should be. I mean, like, it makes sense to me that they are, but it's cool that that they're getting the attention that I think they deserve in this environment. So I think that's been neat, and I'm really enjoying having them as a part of this. And again, as I said, this is only the beginning of a lot of the D&D stuff that we do on here. We have my flagship campaign, Infinity Beyond, which has been running for the longest. We have the new thing starting next month, which is Esper Genesis. We have, of course, D&D with GOG over at the GOG channel. Next week, next Tuesday, we're going to be continuing with Storm King's Thunder over there. So again, it's been a lot of D&D, but I really have been enjoying it. Well, I only say flagship because it's been running for the longest. Like, you know, that one, the Infinity Beyond crew, which is also great and includes Trendane, but also 5 other people. That crew has been really, I love every campaign for different reasons. I love this because I love the feel of it. I really like the chemistry of the folks. That, though, has had some great role playing as well, and it's been running so long that it's almost 2 years now, so it's a different kind of feel to that campaign. So anyway, I like them all for different reasons, but it's been great. So if you guys have liked it as well, please make sure to follow the channel. Please make sure you check out the Steam group with exclamation point Steam group, the YouTube with exclamation point ArvTube, where you can see past broadcasts of this and other streams. Please make sure to check out the Steam group and ARV2. Please make sure to check out the Discord with exclamation point Discord. Please make sure to check out the shop if you want to get some of that Infinity and merchandise shop, exclamation point ARV shop. Of course, the Patreon, which is exclamation point ARVtreon, where you can get the ability to inspire our players. Who knows if they will need it, but perhaps. And last but certainly not least, subbing to the channel would be great as well. We're almost up to 40 subs, which would be a new record for us. So it'd be great if we could hit that 40 sub number to go along with our $400, which hopefully we'll be able to get north of as well. All of that helps for stuff that we're able to do with the channel. So thank you all so much. I'm glad, DeRoy. I'm glad. That's really great. So spreading the word is awesome for stuff like this. Now, we're not going to do a raid because I'm going to be over at GOG in about 50 minutes or so. I'm going to be starting a playthrough of Divinity Original Sin 2. As I've said before, I'm going to be playing. I don't know that I'm going to do the whole thing because I don't want to spend like 9 months on one game. But I will probably play it for some sessions, and then depending if people are loving it, I'll keep doing it. But if it's something where people are kind of like, then I will probably hand it off at that point to Kilgore Trout, a fellow streamer over there, and I will do something else. But we will see. But that is what I'm doing this week. And then, as I said, next week over at GOG, I'll be playing Storm King's Thunder. Also next week is more Middle-earth, so we got a lot of that stuff going on. As for this channel, I'll be back at you guys on Friday when, again, I will be doing some of 2064 read-only memories with the incomparable voiceover team that I'm lucky to have, the Our Vocalists. So that will be good times. Oh, Pyron Jade, one of the people who is in the D&D with GOG, is there as well. And also, happy birthday! It is Pyron Jade's birthday. Happy birthday, Pyron Jade. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Pyron Jade, who has this fish avatar. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Pyron. I will see all of you wonderful people over at GOG at 4 o'clock. Please make sure to stick around for that. Otherwise, please make sure to follow and check all the wonderful things that these players that you just saw are doing. And otherwise, I will see you over at GOG at 4. And if not, I'll see you over at my channel in a few days for 2064 read-only memories. But I'm going to see you hopefully before that. Thank you to everyone who made this a wonderful stream. Thank you to my wonderful mods, Dragonspear and Kilobyte. Thanks to my wonderful subs, Dragonspear, Kilobyte, Brahms, Chaotix, Chloe Rose, Classicor, Echo Alpha X5, Kooky Canuck, Nonstop, and Terry Tunes. Thank you as well to my players, including Terry Tunes tonight, and Trendane, and Amal, and Will from Encounter Roleplay. Thank you to my wonderful players. Thank you to my viewers. Thank you to Agleeth, who I don't know if I've seen in here, Agleeth. I hope you like what you saw and heard, and will follow and support the stream through the sub or Patreon if you can. Same thing for Brian1187. Thank you so much. Thank you to Iami302, to DeRoyne, to Divinorium, Drakensberger, EKEG, GC Darkside Rob, who is in that Infinity and Beyond crew. Thank you to Hamesy, to Jagtris, to Marshlander. Thank you to Misawa Mitsuharu. Oh, yes, I remember this. Thank you, Misawa. Thank you to Moves Like Jagger. Thank you to Nicodemus. I'm not sure if I've seen that Nicodemus also, so same thing. Welcome in. Hope you like what you saw and heard, and will support if you can. Thank you to Pyron Jade. Thank you to Play in the Mud. Again, thank you for the follow today, Play in the Mud. And again, thank you for checking in with us. Thank you to Poltergeist Zero. Thank you to Sir James II. Thank you to Streep. Thank you to Trendane. Again, good job today, Trend. Thank you to you, Christensen. And thank you, of course, to Uncle Elias. Thanks as well for the retweet, Uncle Elias. I appreciate it. That's it for me. Much love to everybody. You guys are the best viewers on Twitch, as I've often said. And I will see you people in about 45 minutes at the top of the hour for the beginning of Divinity Original Sin 2. Until then, everyone be good to each other. Oh, and I can't believe I almost left this out. Thank you also so much to our official sponsors. Thank you to Cubicle 7, who is officially sponsoring this campaign. I must not forget to do that. Thank you so much, Cubicle 7. These are really good people, and I'm really happy that they were able to sponsor us for this. So thank you, Cubicle 7 as well. Now, see you guys in about 45 minutes. Everyone have a good one until then. Have a good day.